Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
A good afternoon, a warm welcome, and absolutely love the fact that you, wherever you may be around the country, you're very much a part of the show. So welcome to the National Pulse. My name is Ashraf Garda. Great that you're a part of it. And you can not just listen, but you can engage. And I appreciate all the levels of engagement. To do that, you can call in to 086 000 2032 and WhatsApp, text or voice notes 0614 104 107. And as per always, you know that you can also tweet it out on the X platform, SAFM Radio, as well as on Facebook. There are some regulars who do that every single day, but some of you don't take pictures. Take pictures of where you are, right? So love to do that. Lots to come, especially we're going to talk about GNU. We can't avoid that. We can't avoid the fact that the MK party now, their members are MPs, right? And there's the issue of Zizi Kodwa, and there's so much more. And there are big issues around Kenya as well. Huge developments in that country. Let's start with the That's My Point feature. Now, you may be aware that we've been having the SAFM Youth Takeover promos for the last few days. So this is the plan, okay? On Thursday and Friday, the next 2 days coming up at the weekend, this show and other shows in the daytime, but let's talk about the show. We are inviting you to effectively co-host the show with me if you're a young person from the ages of 18 to 35. Now, if you think you're that person, then my suggestion is you just WhatsApp us right away to 061 410 4107. You got that? 0614 104 107. And motivate why you should be on this show. And I know that it's great. It gives you front seat at the table to be part of the show. And that gets me thinking about another thing, okay? Because we're in the midst of Youth Month, and you know that there's a huge drive to get youth to the top of the seats in the country. And for all of us, besides them, the young people being skilled, the one thing that you and I, if you're older, must do, right, is create the opportunities for younger people. And the best opportunity you can create for them is this. In whichever field you're in, right, try and create an opening for a younger person. Like, try and do that in the next 3 days before we get to month end, because it's end of Youth Month. Get them to come to your work or to somebody else's work in the field that they're in, to let them job shadow for at least a full day. That opportunity and that exposure to what you do linked to their own aligned skill will open up doors for them and provide for them an absolute front seat to that seat at the table. That's what I want you to do. That's what I'm certainly trying to do every single day. And that's what we can collectively do. But first things first, you know the story in terms of the SAFM Youth Takeover. If you're not the younger person, I would suggest strongly you get that younger person, connect with them now and say, hey, come on, here's a chance for you to co-host Ashraf's show. Do that right away. Get them to WhatsApp us. And the deadline is 4 p.m. today. So there's no tomorrow to think about. You have to apply today. 061 410 4107. I'm expecting you to do that. You can also drop us an email, info@safm.co.za. Well, that's my point. Now, what's yours?
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, so much has been happening around the country. I do hope you are going to connect and get the younger person to come and join me in studio on Thursday, Friday. It's up to you. If you're the young person, great. If you're not that young person, please open the door for the younger person. Do not let them miss out on that opportunity. In fact, we had a younger person here last year when Alden hosted the show, and I understand there's some really good news that came out of that, and we're going to chat to her, by the way, I think in the next 10 minutes or so. Let's talk about the other big issue of a young parliament, because it's only a few days old now, right? And there's been the important issue of the swearing in of new MPs, particularly from the MK party. Zaylene Marrington, the SABC News reporter, has had the privilege of having a close hand of what's been going on there in Cape Town. Zaylene, great chatting to you. You're on the National Pulse.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf.
Much appreciate your time, Zaylene. So perhaps let's start with this. Give us an overview of what happened today.
Ashraf, there was a very organized and smooth registration of MPs this morning, mainly, as you say, MK party members. 58 of them, and then there was also Zizi Kodwa from the ANC, who was also sworn in today. And then it was on to the official business of the day. The proceedings were presided over by the acting, acting Western Cape Judge Patricia Goliath, and she did the swearing in of most of the members, but then the new speaker, Toko Didiza, took over. She did the swearing in of members, also from MK, who filled vacancies. MK Party communicated to Parliament that there were 21 vacancies on their list, and so there were new people, if I could call it that, who were filling those vacancies, and among them was the impeached former judge, John Hlophe, who is now also their leader in Parliament and also their chief whip.
Okay, and just stay with the Hlophe Goliath connection. There was lots of speculation that, in fact, that she who served under him before in the Cape, right, was going to preside over his swearing, and that, I understand, did not happen, right?
Exactly. Yes. That would have been quite interesting to witness. And that is where the speaker then took over. And that is just how the procedure of Parliament works. It's not anything to do with either Goliath or Hlophe. It was just how the proceedings of Parliament work, because Hlophe was not among, if I can simplify it, he was not among the original list of the MK Party. He was on the sort of amended list, and that is why Speaker Didiza then took over and did the swearing in of him and others.
All right, so to make the point that they were not deliberately and intentionally kept apart, is that what you're saying?
That is exactly, yes. It was just, this is how the processes of Parliament work.
Okay.
Of course, it would have been interesting to notice, or to witness, Ashraf, but, there's no dialogue that takes place in terms of the procedure. I'm sure as listeners would know.
Yes.
You get called up and you get asked if you swear allegiance to the Republic and the Constitution, and, it's that process, and then they say whether or not they do, and then they go back to their seats. So in any case, there would have been no dialogue between these two individuals.
Okay. And I take it, there was no audience. When I say audience, when the other MPs were sworn in the other day in the General Assembly, we had a far larger audience. Would I take it at this time around, only those members who are being sworn in today were present?
There were family members, for instance, the former, also impeached Public Protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, who is an EFF MP. She was here to support her husband, who got sworn in as an MK MP. So there were family members who came to support. I think it's just because the group was much smaller, so obviously the support from family and friends weren't so obvious today.
Okay, right. Now, did anything, you made a point, the swearing is a simple process, yet some people can, bear their allegiance and to God, people of a certain religious persuasion, right? But others are not obliged to do just that. Did anybody pronounce anything that was particularly unusual, that just stood out? Anything you can remember?
Nothing that popped out today. And you know what? No, I've been at Parliament for a couple of years now, and these procedures, or let me say this ceremony, even when EFF came to Parliament and really turned some things on its head, this ceremony is still the one that sort of has remained calm and with the decorum of the House. And really it is normally, as it was today and also as it was last week, it was really fairly simple and smooth and easy. After the ceremony, there were some happy chants and some of the members were singing, but that is allowed after the House has been adjourned. Obviously not during, but after the House. Okay. It's not encouraged, But yeah, it is allowed.
I understand. What about the small matter of Zizi Kodwa? Any comments, any oohs, any ahs regarding his swearing-in process as an MP? Remember, he's a former minister who stepped down because of allegations of corruption, yeah?
Yeah. He was actually the first one called out today to come to the front. We spoke to him. Initially, he did not want to speak to us, but just before proceedings started today, he did speak to the media. He spoke, but was very tight-lipped. He just said that he is on, and he kept repeating, the list has been certified, the ANC's list has been certified, and I am on the list, and that is why I'm here. In order for me to serve as a member of parliament, I must be sworn in. You know, it was almost like a little something that he practiced at home that he was going to say to us. It was something that he kept repeating. One of the journalists asked him, but why weren't you sworn in on Friday? And he said that he had urgent family business to do. He said that he was at the CTICC where the swearing in was held to register, but then on the 14th, he had important family business that he had to attend to, and that is why he was not sworn in. The issue of the ANC step-aside rule, where if a member has been charged with corruption, they have to step aside. We asked him about that, and he said, no, that's for the party to answer. I am here to be sworn in because I am on the party list. And the list has been certified. That's something that he kept repeating. It was interesting.
Well, we're certainly going to talk about that with Outer coming up shortly, about just the merits of having him up as an MP. Just the last thing, Judge, in this case, former Judge Dr. John Slope, did he say anything? Because I mean, also his position. From one, it was he may be the chief whip. Now it could well be the leader of the MK party in Parliament. Did he say anything in terms of his position and how he sees his role?
He did address the media afterwards, Ashraf, and he said that they are here to work for the people of South Africa. He said that the party would be engaging in a very mature way. He said, we're not here to be petty. We're not here to engage in petty politics, but we will be robust to bring the matters that we raise, or rather that our voters raise, to bring that under the spotlight. He also said that they are going to be respectful towards their colleagues, but he says no one is going to bully us. We know why we are here. We know what our role is. And he also added that just because Ashraf last week or just over a week ago, when they weren't available for the swearing-in ceremony, they informed Parliament that they are not attending because they are challenging the outcome of the 2024 elections. Yeah. So he did mention earlier that just because they are here today and just because they've been sworn in and are taking part in National Assembly proceedings does not mean that they have abandoned their court case. He says they still believe that the elections were rigged.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Interesting. He said nobody's going to bully us. It's an interesting statement and what that really means. So, Aileen Marrington, I appreciate your time. Much thank you for that scene setter really for the entire show today, because in some ways it just connects us totally to what we talk about here on the National Pulse. So thank you for that. And by the way, that a clip of that interview with John Slope, we'll have that played around 5:10. So listen out for that. But lots of other comments. And to ask you this question, as I always do when I open the show, what for you moves the National Pulse today? So you tell me. I have my own views, but what about you? You tell me what moves the National Pulse. 0614 104 107, and then that's to WhatsApp, text or voice note to call in 086 000 2032. Do not forget the social media post, the hashtag The National Pulse. We go to Kenya next.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone so you can go fast? Or for many to go together so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Lindelani ladies want to change gears against reigning champs to relocate from the danger zone. However, Banyana Style say they will conquer the game and grab the vital 3 points. eThekwini meets Clorco. This is the Hollywood Men's Super League. Catch the Mzansi Queens on the page. Lindelani Ladies FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC on Sunday 30 June at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sports on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Right, here's a question. Do you think you're paying too much on your car insurance? I can just imagine the answer to that one. Well, 56-year-old Dialan said that he said no to sky-high insurance premiums and is now insured without insurance and only pays 756 rands a month to insure his white 2023 Haval Jolion 5, or Jolion S, in fact. To follow in Dialan's footsteps, well, you can do it. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. That's out, O-U-T, right? Out to 30754. License, insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, yesterday we spoke about it in terms of developments with regard to protests, mainly amongst young people in Kenya, as part of what is called the Occupy Parliament protests. And the understanding was that they're protesting against, the issues of tax rises, right? Now, that story has developed so much in the last day or so from protests. I understand there's been more violent protests. To some degree, there's been tear gas being set off there by government or government forces in this case here. There's been some people arrested, beaten up, and more and more. Let's find out about the more with Demas Kiprono, who's the acting executive director of the Kenyan section of the International Commission of Jurists. Demas, appreciate your time. You're live with the National Pulse. Demas, do I have you there? We should be connecting to Demas in just a moment. We may have just lost him for a second or two. It just gives me a chance to just tell you that, again, we often get people commenting about the things we do. And I'll tell you what, it's really, really appreciated. And then we get the WhatsApps and we get people from all around the country and those listening via streaming live as well. So you know the story, right? It's not just listening on radio, as in 104 to 107 nationwide, which you can do wherever you may be. And I know we're talking about Grahamstown or Makanda, lots of people listening in from there, but also people listening on streaming live, like Sipho Sitoli the other day and others from Holland or the Netherlands, listening on streaming live all around the world. If that's you, then how about you dropping us a message on WhatsApp 0614 104 107. Tell me where you're listening in from. Right. Okay. I understand we do now have connection with our guest, Demas Kiprono. Appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Right. So yesterday we spoke about protests. And at that stage they were relatively peaceful, I understand. A lot has developed over the last 24 hours. Perhaps tell us what's happened there.
We've had protests for the past week. Began Tuesday last week, mostly peaceful. However, over the weekend there has been a phenomenon where many people have been abducted, especially social media influencers who are perhaps perceived to be organizers of the protest. And so we've had so many arbitrary arrests. And then today was dubbed the Mother of All protests by the social media channels, and Kenyans came out, went to the streets, and this is after the cabinet secretary in charge of internal security assured Kenyans that as long as they kept the peace, that they were free to exercise their Article 37 right to assemble. And so today, Kenyans went to the streets to assemble. But immediately they got to the Nairobi streets. A lot of police brutality, a lot of violence took place. We've seen had reports of the use of live bullets, indiscriminate arrests and beatings of protesters. And about an hour ago, the numbers started to overwhelm the police officers, and the the protesters actually breached the precincts of parliament and went into parliament. And in the process, we have reports that a few people have been killed. We do not have the precise numbers right now, but we saw on television, we've heard from our monitors that persons on the ground have been shot, have been killed. At the same time, the protesters breached the precincts of parliament, went in, and the members of parliament were whisked away. So while the protesters were protesting against the finance bill outside of parliament, the members of parliament went ahead and passed the same provisions that the people were protesting against. And this, I think, really enriched the members of the public who went in. The members of parliament are safe. I think they escaped through other means. So there have been arrests. People are still in the streets, and we are really in uncertain times. We are calling upon the police to really exercise restraint, to follow the rules on the use of force and firearms under the National Police Service Act and under international law, and to ensure that people are allowed to vent. The cost of living has gone up over the last few years. The levels of unemployment are overwhelming, and persons, especially the youth, are feeling the pinch. Some of the safety nets that they had before, subsidized university education.
We may have just lost. I think we may have just done that. Unfortunately, just losing my guest, Demas Kiprono, just for a moment. But let me tell you what we understand here. So here's the thing. I mean, there's been protests by young people protesting against, tax rises and overall cost of living. So yesterday we spoke, it was relatively peaceful, but now it's turned pretty violent. Lots of people arrested. And he also made the point that, influencers who are able to carry the story on social media have been abducted. Now, in Egypt, for example, in Cairo, at the height of that Arab Spring rising, we had the same issues where the social media played a huge role in mobilizing people in terms of where they needed to be going. Okay, we do have now Demas Kiprono back with us. Demas, we've got a minute to go. Where do you think, therefore, this will end? Because often when you have issues like this and you have people protesting and then it turns violent and you have lots of people, abducted or, as you said, even killed, it then naturally just raises the temperature and raises the stakes. So it's not just so much about the tax issue any longer. It could well be about the relative position regarding the authority of the government itself.
Yes, what I think this moment really presents is that it will define the relationship between the people who govern and the governed. Under the Kenyan Constitution, it's the people who are sovereign, and everyone who is exercising government authority is exercising it on the behalf of the sovereign, either appointed or elected. And so they should never feel or act as if they are not answerable to the people. The breach of the precincts of parliament has shown that the people have the ultimate power. And over the past week, our politicians have not been able to address crowds as they've been doing before. They've been made to keep quiet. They've been made to sit down. They've been asked to leave. And so it's the people taking back the power that they had so neglected in the past. They are now exercising their right to determine their lives, to determine how they are governed. And it would be well upon the people in government, the representatives, the executive, to understand that Kenyans have said that you cannot make policies that are hurting us and think that we'll not do anything about it.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time.
A framework of this.
I understand. Demas Kiprono, appreciate your time. We'll add this up as a podcast as well, ASAP. Demas is the acting executive director of the Kenyan section of the International Commission of Jurists. Do you have a view, an opinion, a take on what's going on in Kenya? Feel free to comment. We'll take your calls as well. Let's get the news headlines now. It's just gone 3:30 with Eva Chipa.
Very good afternoon. With the news headlines, Kemudupi Makhalemele. Protesters in Nairobi, Kenya have damaged a section of parliament where a huge plume of smoke can be seen. Stats SA says the total number of people employed in the formal non-agricultural sector decreased by 67,000 in the first quarter of this year. And Joburg Water says the infrastructure maintenance work on its pump stations is well on schedule. A full news update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road. Winnie Mandela Drive southbound in Bryanston has delays towards Ballyclare Drive. In Pretoria, the N14 northbound has delays towards the R101 interchange, and SKM Pahleli Drive northbound has delays towards Moot Street. In KZN, the N2 northbound is queuing opposite Westwood Mall. In Howick, the N3 westbound has a truck crash reported at Sadara. All lanes are open, and the N3 southbound on Wednesday will be closed between Balgowan and Lions River exits from 10 a.m. until 12 noon for urgent bridge repair works. In Cape Town, the R300 southbound in Delft has a crash reported after Van Riebeeck Road exit. The N1 outbound has a crash reported at Plattekloof Road, and Victoria Road is slow moving in the Bantry Bay area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM Youth Month Takeover. SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what the two compelling issues facing our 30 years of democracy are, and we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
So I tell you what, I can't emphasize strongly enough what you just heard in the promo in terms of the SAFM Youth Takeover. Come on, we've got till 4 o'clock for you, if you're between ages of 18 to 35, to be able to be a part of this show, Thursday, Friday, and other shows as well, right? From Stephen's show right down to 6 o'clock, all the shows in that complete band. But what you have to do is you have to WhatsApp right away, 0614 104 107. So it could be you, if you between the ages of 18 to 35. If it's not you and you're much older, but you must know someone that you'd like to give an opportunity, open the doors to, then I would suggest just WhatsApp them right away and say, come on, get on board and make that call or send that WhatsApp like right now. Looking forward to you not just listening in on the show, but co-hosting the show. Now, to just set the scene regarding that, let's go back to 1 year ago. My guest now is Silu, as they call my guest, Silu Mola Modi, who's the breakfast show host for Hope Alive. And Silu was named the Dear South Africa's most inspiring young South African leader. Now, here's the issue. Last year, or 2 years ago, in fact it was, SFM ran this competition, inviting young people to participate. And Aldon Sampia hosted that show at that time. And Salu was the ultimate winner. And that story has moved on dramatically since then. So, Salu, good chatting to you. And you're like, welcome to your show, I should say.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Yeah, it's a full circle moment. Thank you for having me.
Well, there you are. Well, I'll tell you what, let's start with that full circle moment. Do you remember some of the things that you said when you were part of that show with Aldrin 2 years ago? And, the things you spoke about?
Sure. I don't remember a lot, but I do remember there was one question that we were all asked in the final round, and that was, who would we like to interview? And I was the third person to answer. I was the last person to answer, Ashraf. I remember I got so nervous because the person before me said the president. And I thought, okay, if this person wants the president, then who do I want? But I remember that mine has always been to speak to people that are making a difference within our communities, our heroes that wear capes and walk among us. And I remember very vividly, I said, I'd like to interview Tebogo Ditshego, and the team made it happen.
So Tebogo Ditshego, that's the guy in the marketing space, right? Marketing PR space.
Yes.
Have I got it right?
Yes, that's him.
Well,
absolutely.
Good choice. He's a legend, quite very much so. And we owe each other a cup of coffee just between me and him. That's another whole conversation. Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to talk more. Let me play back some parts of what you said then.
Thank you so much. I could not have not told you guys about this amazing opportunity that I have, which I grabbed with both hands, because what you guys gave me is literally an eternal mark on my CV. Because when I walk into spaces, once I say I've done BTH with Eldrin Sampier, people start to
Yes,
look at me different.
Yes, girl.
They're like, oh, the Eldrin Sampier. I'm like, yes, on national radio.
Yeah.
And that for me is something that will never be taken away from me. So I just told myself, after you guys gave me that opportunity, that my work ethic has to match that standard. And I'm so grateful for the opportunities that it has opened up.
Well, there you are. Isn't that I'm listening and you're listening too. It's like, wow.
I was about to ask, who's that girl?
Well, we certainly know. So what happened to you, so you came in here like we're inviting others to be guests on Thursday, Friday to co-host with me. And who knows what's going to happen to their lives and whether they're going to also want to interview a Tebogo Ditseho or somebody else, like maybe the next president, not the current one. You never know who they want to do, right? What happened to you after you left here? Because you did a one-day stint, right? Yeah.
Yes, I did. On a very cold youth day, I will never forget. It's also crazy, Ashraf, how I was wearing the same jacket this morning that I was wearing when I came to do the show that day. Sure. My God. So what happened was that I got an opportunity to then host the breakfast show, but initially I did an afternoon show. So I did a lunchtime show, and they said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a breakfast show?" I'll be honest with you, Ashraf, I had no idea how big of a deal breakfast was. I just took on the opportunity because, hey, I just want to grow. I did that. This year in April, we were celebrating 2 years of Hope Alive Breakfast. A couple of months later, I get an email saying that I have been nominated for the DASA Young Leader Award. And to this day, I still have people on Twitter that say, you are that girl, right? You are the one who was on Behind the Headline. And it's given me relationships that I will never lose. It has helped me, again, to build my work ethic because I'd like to believe it has matched the standard. Otherwise, how would I be an award-winning radio host now, So it has opened a wide range of opportunities for me.
Well, I mean, that's just fabulous. Me, I often talk about champions, and from what I can hear, I mean, you're certainly a champion in your space, and long may you grow into a bigger and better champion for yourself and for your country or our country, right? So on reflection, just the last thing, right? How important was that visit that you had to co-host with Alron, 2 years ago? Just on reflection now.
Yeah. I think one of the things I always say to people, Ashraf, is it's not that young people are incapable. We just need an opportunity. We just need that 1 foot in. And what I got 2 years ago was exactly that, because somebody said, I believe in you. I believe in your voice. Show me what you've got. And I took the opportunity with both hands. So looking back, I'm grateful that I did that. I remember I didn't even have Instagram at the time because we had to send voice notes via Instagram. And I was asking my friends, can I record and send? And so if you really want something, best believe it wants you. So to the young people that are tuning in and are wondering whether or not to take the opportunity, take it. Take it, because tomorrow it's you on the national pulse.
Well, exactly what I'm saying is we are begging them to get in so we can give them a seat at the table. That's really what it is. And they must grab it. Absolutely. Well, let me leave it at that. Great chatting to you, and maybe we'll connect some other time because we must follow your journey. I think it's very important. All I can tell you now, having not met you, Sulu, I believe in your voice. And you got
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you owe me coffee now, so let's make it happen.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Well, there you are. So that sets the scene then. Sulu's now the breakfast show host on Hope Alive, and she first came in here on the radio station 2 years ago as part of the SAFM Youth Takeover. I'll tell you what, if that doesn't convince you or someone you know between the ages of 18 to 35 to want to co-host this show on Thursday and Friday with me, well, then you're never going to make it. Here's a door that's wide open for you to grab it. So grab it. 0614 104 107. WhatsApp us like ASAP. There is a small matter of Zizi Kodwa, which we talk about next.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, let's now get to understand the story, if we can, around Zizi Kodwa, a member of the ANC, a minister, in fact, Minister of Arts, Sports, Arts, Culture until a few days ago, in fact, weeks back, and then resigned when there were allegations, that came to court. He had to make a court appearance around allegations of corruption, which that will take its course. I mean, that's a long process, I understand. But the point is he resigned on his own as the minister. But he's an MP. He was sworn in today as an MP, an ANC MP at the National Assembly. So, do you have a view on that? And what do you make of that? Well, help me understand something maybe I don't know. With me is Wayne Duvenage, who's the Executive Director at Outer. Wayne, good chatting to you. Hi.
Good to be with you, Ashraf.
Thank you. Right. So Wayne, what do you understand? Is this a straightforward issue? A person resigned as a minister, but fine. So he's an MP. So what? Or is there so much more to it that we should be reading into?
Yeah, there is a lot more that we should be reading into it. And I think it's inconsistencies in the way the ANC is applying its step-aside policy and the ethics of such a situation. Now, if you compare Zizi Kodwa's situation to that of Ace Magashule, in both cases they have been charged by the MPA. They've appeared in court on these allegations that are made. Not yet found guilty, because that, as you say, can take some time. And they were very forceful in having Ace Magashule step aside, and now we have this situation. Now, fortunately, Zizi Kodwa resigned of his own accord, but I think that it should have gone further. The ANC should be saying, according to our step-aside policy, you shouldn't be representing the party in any form of government, which includes being an MP in Parliament. And that's the difference here. So there's an inconsistency, and we believe it's not right.
Okay, now, it's an inconsistency that is very glaring. You get some inconsistencies that you can't really quite pick up, right? This is very glaring. Why do you think the ANC would continue with this, if it's that glaring?
Sure. I don't know. One can speculate. I mean, if they are on a rejuvenation program or process, then you would assume they wouldn't do that at all. They wouldn't bring him back in to the fold or represent the party as a member of Parliament. So clearly they're not taking that approach that they try to convince us of that they are doing very seriously, because they wouldn't as far as we're concerned. But, he's probably closely connected to the powers that be, and he would like to be in Parliament, and he's applied enough of a motivation to the powers that be within the organisation that he wants to be there. And I guess they've succumbed to that request.
Or maybe the other way around. I mean, I don't know if you know any better, unless you're an ANC insider, to say, did it come from him to say, I want to be in Parliament and I can legally be in Parliament because I haven't been convicted, or the ANC saying, hold it, you've stepped aside in terms of that important portfolio as the minister, but there's nothing stopping you from being an MP and therefore encourage them to do that. Now, we don't really know because we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know. When one would have assumed that Zizi Kodwa should have done the right thing and said, and I'm also going to step aside and not represent the party in Parliament. I think the ANC would have breathed a sigh of relief and said, thank goodness, because this is going to be a difficult one to answer. And that's what they're finding, it difficult to answer to the public on it. It's going to taint their image. And
I do take the obvious that, if it's been charged but not convicted, I mean, he can be an MP. That's why he's been sworn in as an MP. That legally is allowed, right?
Yes, yes. You've got 5 years. If over the last 5 years you have not had a criminal record which you've had to pay a fine or be sentenced for, then you are eligible for Parliament.
And that obviously is the one that disqualified former President Zuma because of his time in prison there. The broader issue, right? Do you think there would be pressure from civil society, like yourself, like Outer and others, who are saying like, in this ANC, in this country, right now, as we look at renewal, as you mentioned, how can this be allowed? I find there's an absence of protest, isn't it?
Yeah, look, we've aired our concerns. We've raised this part openly in the last number of days as this started coming to light. I'm sure that the presidency and the powers that be, certainly the ruling party, who's the one that are making this appointment, are hearing not only ours, but the outcry from many sectors of society. And I guess this is where they really need to go back to the drawing board. They need to understand how serious are they going to hold people to account and remove people in such situations from the party, from standing and representing them. If they don't, then I'm afraid, we can't take them seriously on this journey, which is why we're looking forward to this government of national unity, because there's going to be a lot more oversight, a lot more people unpacking some of these decisions in Parliament and asking tougher questions of the ruling party going forward, or the past ruling party, now a coalition party.
Well, interesting choice of phrase. We can't take them seriously, which leaves me to the last point. What for you is the message that comes out of this conversation around Zizi Kodwa in terms of where it positions the ANC now?
Well, I think it means that we as the public need to express our concerns around such appointments. We need to make ourselves heard a lot clearer. I guess if there was another election coming up, these types of things would impact on the outcomes of those elections. But again, it remains to be seen what they do with this information going forward. I did get an impression that they were still contemplating it. It wasn't a done deal, but I guess he's been signed in by now, so they have decided to go ahead. We need to apply pressure as civil society.
Yeah. Do you have an opinion on is it Ronaldo Gous and regarding the allegations attached to him regarding pronouncements of racism, etc.?
Yeah, well, I've seen those videos, and they say, what they are. He should be removed completely, and that again is a matter that that his party, the DA, should be dealing with swiftly. And we are very pleased that the Human Rights Commission is taking action as well. I think that kind of behaviour is disgusting. It's not called for in this country. We need to get over these racial divisions, and people like him just add fuel to the fire. We don't need people like him representing any member of Parliament or any party in Parliament.
And that's where we'll leave it. Wayne Duvenage, appreciate your time as always, out as Executive Director. Pronouncing, well, in this case here on Ronaldo Gous at the end, and before that, the former Minister, Zizi Kodwa.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand, or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Are you ready to buy or build your first home or buy a stand anywhere in South Africa? If you are a South African citizen, you and your spouse have never benefited from a government housing subsidy program, and your household income is between 3,501 and 22,000 Rand per month, your dream can be realized by applying for a first home finance subsidy. To apply, just log into the First Home Finance application online portal at firsthomefinance.co.za or call a call center agent on 010-085-2199 to assist you for free with completing your First Home Finance online application. Beware, applying for First Home Finance subsidy is free. Do not pay anyone when applying for the subsidy. The NHFC is an agency of the National Department of Human Settlements.
Hey there! Need to know your TV license balance but don't want to wait? No sweat! Just send a quick SMS with your ID or TV license number to 44210. Remember, standard SMS rates apply. And presto, your balance pops right up anytime, anywhere. It's as easy as pie. So why procrastinate? Give it a try and get your info in a flash. T's and C's apply.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, we're going to talk about some border controls around the Mpox issue, and that's a real serious issue, but the dealing with it is just as important. I need to get your thoughts, because we asked you the question, what moves the national pulse so much? We'll talk about the markets business, that is, with and how that impacts on what's going on in the country right now, or maybe vice versa, with Kaya Sitoli coming up just after 4 o'clock, so look out for that. But in terms of some of the comments you've already made about many things, including the MK in Parliament, let's play them.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Flores from Western Cape, beautiful Winelands region. Ashraf, I was listening into the swearing in of the MK party parliament leaders, and I said to myself, how many of these guys are actually contradicting themselves by promising how they will uphold the constitution? And here, let me tell you, we're in for a bumpy ride, especially the very first State of the Nation address. But I just hope these guys can behave. And yeah, finally they can look forward to a salary. That's what it's all about these days, being a politician, cashing in. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Okay, I don't know if that's really true about that's what it's all about, cashing in, but I hear what you're saying about other things. I think, what do they earn? About 100,000 a month, so I understand. And I think there's left to be taxed on that. And then I think they spend a lot of time, and I'm not talking about MK. I do think to be an MP, it means you have to give up your other career, right? And many of them are highly qualified in other spaces. They have to spend a lot of time driving their business of being an MP, and it's huge, right? Here's another one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ursula Hubert from Belleville. What moves the pulse for me today? The nation's pulse is the caliber of leaders, the resentment also, the uneasiness, that the caliber of our leaders are the likes of Judge Slope, a man who was impeached, irrespective of the reasons that they now put on the table, that it was too hasty. It just doesn't feel right. If you look at those people in DA, the Ronaldo House and the other gentlemen as well, if you look at the desperation of Helen Zille, then a person wonder, as much as we want to believe in the GNU, we wonder, who are our leaders? Where's the ethics, morality?
Well, lots of people have asked that question about Judge Slope. He's impeached, but he's an MP now, and he leads a party, the opposition in Parliament. Here's the last one for now.
Good evening, Ashraf. I think the ANC step aside is not for everyone. It's only taking place when the other ANC members doesn't want other ANC members to be in positions, because it's clear that Zizo Kodwa scored a case, but still has been shown in as a member of parliament. Speaking to Vukani Mtalane in Pinetown, thank you.
Thank you, Vukani from Pinetown, so all over the country, from Cape Town to the KZN region. Well, maybe that's a great line. The ANC step aside is not for everyone. Do you agree with that? Let's get to another important issue, and that is the issue of speaking to the Border Management Authority around an important development that we need to be concerned about. In fact, Murdoch Ramatuba is with me, the Assistant Commissioner for the Specialized Services, which includes Health, Agriculture, Environment and Immigration Services. And we talk about the issue of the spread of Mpox and how that potentially can be curbed, if anything. So, Murdoch, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Yes, good afternoon to you and your listeners. Thank you very much for welcoming us.
Good afternoon. So we understand that the cases are now at number 13 or 13 cases. What's the plan to curb it, if anything, from managing the borders?
Can you repeat that, Ashraf?
I was saying I understand there are 13 cases, and understand that there's a move, therefore, to perhaps manage and to limit the spread of the Mpox disease, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think I think you have read the statement from the Department of Health in terms of what they are doing inland. So our role is to prevent more cases from being imported into the country. We have strengthened our systems, our surveillance in the port of entry in the three modalities, both the air, land, as well as the sea port of entry.
And how are you going to do that?
Firstly, I think you're already aware of the fact that in terms of a disease of this nature, fever is one of the things that you should be looking at. We've got our thermal scanners that are in the port of entry, which the port health officials and their teams monitor the temperatures of people that come in. But even before that, on board a flight or a vessel on sea, the captain does provide a health declaration in terms of whether there were travelers that might have been having symptoms, of which if they are, we do isolate those.
Do we still have you there, Murdoch? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We think we have. You said you isolate those. Were you going to say more than that?
Yes. After that, once after observation, it is deemed fit that they may need to have a further assessment. Then we've got arrangements with the health departments in all the 9 provinces, depending on which port which province the port is. Then we can transfer those people to the health facility so that they can be.
Yeah. Are you concerned that it's that important to sort of close off the borders or to limit the spread on the borders because you are concerned about Mpox itself spreading beyond the 13?
You see, when anything that comes into the country, it's not only about Mpox, but any communicable disease or any event of international concern as defined by the international regulations. Our role is to make sure that we prevent the spread thereof, including spreading it out of the country. Hence, we need to have those controls on the ground, while the health department is doing their part inland.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you'd like to share?
It's just to say to our travelers that are coming into the country to say, should you have any symptoms that are related to Mpox, as we are communicating on radio and with pamphlets throughout, it's best to go to seek medical attention in the nearest health facility. Any South African that has traveled out of the country or that has been in contact or closer to people that are known to be infected, it's best to go and look medical assistance in the nearest health facility.
Okay, and that's where we can leave it to Murdoch Ramatuba, the Assistant Commissioner for the Specialised Services. Much appreciate you giving off your time, right? Let's just pick out some other comments. In fact, we've got Intabi Seng saying from Emma Lachleni, love your show. And saying a brand new family member. So we are welcome to the show. And there's another Ashraf, I've just tuned into the show. I wasn't aware of time. How can you miss out on the time? Like, you have to know it's 3:00. You don't start at 3:30. But thanks for listening in and saying, I just heard you say mistakenly, so step aside isn't for everyone. No, it is. I didn't say so. I'm quoting the previous caller who said it isn't for everyone. And I think you can deduce from that what that means. We've also had I think we've had someone listening in from Abu Dhabi, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to try and find that one. But maybe keep it coming. I'll get those names just now. Love the fact that we get people listening on radio, but also on live streaming around the world. And if you aren't listening on radio, wherever you are, and around the world on live streaming, well then, I'll tell you what, I want to know about it. I really want to know about it. You can also watch us live streaming in terms of visuals by going to the X platform, as well as on Facebook, and you can see all the behind the scenes of what happens when we host a show with all the mayhem, if anything, that comes through from there. So check it and tell me what you think about all of that. Let's get the news now. It's 4:00 with Madupi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garda. The top stories: Kenyan protesters damage a section of parliament, and Stats SA releases the latest employment numbers. A very good afternoon. Protesters in Nairobi, Kenya have damaged a section of parliament where a huge plume of smoke can be seen. There are reports that as many as 10 people have been killed in clashes with police. The BBC reports that Kenyan police are trying to push out the protesters who have gained entry into the parliamentary complex. The protesters are angry about proposed new tax increases that the government wants to implement in a bid to resolve its budgetary deficit. Kenyan MPs are reportedly not able to leave the parliamentary building. These people in Nairobi explain why they joined the protests.
We as the people of Kenya have no problem with paying taxes, but we want to see what the value of our money is doing.
As a country, we are not heard. It's like we just elected leaders and they don't serve us. They just have their own personal interests. So our presence here is very important.
They need to tell us, excuse me, what did you do with 3.1 trillion shillings that you collected from Kenyans? There's nothing to show for it. That's what we're saying. That's why we're here.
Here at home, the parliamentary leader of the MK party, John Hlophe, says the party is still challenging the outcome of the national elections last month. Hlophe, who was impeached as a judge last year, spoke to the media after the swearing-in ceremony of 58 MK members of parliament. Over a week ago, the party informed Parliament that it would not be present for the main swearing-in ceremony because they were challenging the election's outcomes. Hlophe says this has not been abandoned.
The fact that we are participating in the National Assembly should not be construed as an indication that we have now abandoned the legal elections. We are convinced that these elections were rigged. That is our case, and the case has been taken to appropriate forums.
The ANC has redeployed its chairperson of the Defence Portfolio Committee in the National Assembly, Cyril Gaba, to the eThekwini Metro Council. Gaba, who was the KZN Agriculture MEC between 2014 and 2019, is taking up the seat left vacant by Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda. The ANC had announced Kaunda's redeployment to the NCOP after talks about a government of national unity started following the elections. eThekwini Speaker Thabani Nyawose says that 10 councillors have been redeployed by their parties after the polls. He has confirmed in a council meeting that Gaba has taken Kaunda's place.
But I can confirm that, yes, Councillor Cyril Gaba is a councillor in the eThekwini municipality. We have replaced Councillor Mxolisi Kaunda. Everything has been followed. He is here because he's a councillor in the list of the ANC. I can confirm that.
Stats SA says the total number of people employed in the formal non-agricultural sector decreased by 67,000 in the first quarter of this year. This brings the number of people employed in the sector to 10.7 million. Kozatu's Matthew Parks.
The SRD grant, which has been a useful lifeline for millions of unemployed persons, needs to be increased to the food poverty line. But government cannot continue as is. This is a ticking time bomb, and whilst government needs to play its part, including dealing with issues of crime and corruption and making sure that all South Africans and companies in particular pay the taxes the state needs to fund public services, the private sector too has got to come to the party. The mining industry and many other sectors need to halt retrenchments. We should not be adding a single person to the unemployment queue. Similarly, companies in the private sector need to pay workers a living wage so they can buy the goods the economy produces and thus stimulate growth.
And Joburg Water says the infrastructure maintenance work on its pump stations is well on schedule. This is part of bulk water entity Rand Water's 37-day maintenance project in Gauteng. The work, which began over the weekend, is aimed at preserving the quality and integrity of its infrastructure. Residents and businesses can expect low water pressure at times while work is being conducted. Joburg Water spokesperson Nombuso Shabalala.
The Rand Water maintenance work at the Zwart Koppies pump station and Daleside booster station was completed last night. Zwart Koppies is currently pumping at 80%, and it is anticipated that pumping will be at 100% by this evening. Meanwhile, pumping at Daleside tripped last night due to technical challenges. However, pumping did resume today at 12 midday, and it is currently pumping at 50%. Affected areas include those supplied by Orange Farm, Ennerdale and Lowly Systems.
The top story at 4 o'clock, protesters in Nairobi, Kenya have damaged a section of parliament where a huge plume of smoke can be seen. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhaleme.
And coming up in your sports, the Sour Sea returns as Rassie Rasmus names 2 uncapped plates for Island Series and Djokovic to only play at Wimbledon if he can fight for a title. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. Christian de Wet Road northbound in Radiokop has a crash reported after Hendrik Potgieter Road, and the N40 northbound in Pretoria has delays towards the R101 interchange. In KZN, the N2 northbound is queuing opposite Westwood Mall. The N3 westbound in Howick has a truck crash reported at Sadara. All lanes are open. In Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound is slow moving at Voortrekker Road. Victoria Road is slow moving through Woodstock, and Main Road outbound in Observatory is slow moving towards the N2 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Makoti Down Products is a proudly South African family business, started more than 30 years ago with 12 geese and a piece of material. Makoti manufactures duvets, pillows, sleeping bags, and high-quality Egyptian cotton linen. Our down products are suitable for people with dust mite allergies and come with a lifelong guarantee. And we offer a nationwide cleaning service for all your feather and down products. Visit us at makoti.co.za or call us on 041 992 395. For quality down, Makoti Down.
Say ROBOT_BO_BO, the Cash Moon SABC 1, 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Deal or no deal, celebrity game. Let's get it.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So, who can I give a shout out today? In fact, the people listening on streaming live, I can. There's one person listening from Philadelphia in USA, but you don't give me a name. But I'm glad that you're listening in. It's really important. So, good morning to you, I would think, isn't it? Listening in from Philadelphia, man or woman with no name, unknown. But drop us a name so we know that one. And then we've got Tsepo listening from Abu Dhabi. So, there we are. So, people all around the world. Anybody from Australia, which means it'll be like close to midnight, I would think, if you are listening from Australia. Anyway, wherever you may be, around the world, around this country, connected to the National Pulse. I want to know who you are and where you're listening in from. And if you wish to add what you do, that's even great as well. We're going to talk pretty shortly around the issue of the rand strengthening and what that really means with Kaya Sitoli. So looking out to that conversation, we'll have an interview that was done on behalf of the SABC with John Slope, played after 5. Do not miss that. But I'll take your calls. Lots of people want to talk. I want to take your calls. Be short and sharp when you get on. Even the voice notes, keep it to maximum 1 minute, preferably even slightly less. It just helps us get to as many people as we absolutely can. Right, so here's the thought. What is the role of the cabinet ministers? We know that Gauteng province in particular have not yet appointed their cabinet or executive. Huge issue around that. We know nationally, government talking about now maybe within the next 24 to 36 hours, today, tomorrow, I don't know, but sometime soon we will have an executive, a cabinet that effectively runs the country. Lots of talk yesterday, if you may be aware, from that leaked DA letter about not just cabinet ministers but also DGs, and they want to have some input into the appointment or contracting of those DGs. So we thought, you know what, let's find out about what does a cabinet minister actually do and what does a DG actually do, so we can understand it, right? So with me now is Professor Mashupye Maserumule, who's a commentator from the Tshwane University of Technology. I appreciate your time, Professor. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for hosting me.
Much appreciated. So, well, you've got this difficult task of helping us understand, firstly, what does a cabinet minister or a member of the executive really do?
They, in simple terms, your political executive authority ought to provide what we call policy leadership, which basically talk to a particular political vision that your political executive authority will have, And when I talk about your political executive authority, I am talking about your president and his cabinet. That is in the context of the national government. And obviously in your province, we'll talk about the premier and members of his executive council. They provide what you call political leadership, which is essentially more about being the custodian of the political vision of a governing party, or rather in this case it's going to be a political vision of the coalition arrangement, whatever form that it may actually take. On the other hand, you'll have what you call a senior bureaucrat. We refer to them as director general. These are the people that ought to provide what you call administrative executive leadership. What does that entail? It is basically about translating your policy into practicable, implementable program as it relates to different departments. So that is in a nutshell and in the most simplest way how one can actually make a distinction between a political executive authority and also the administrative executive.
Okay, let's go back to that role of the cabinet minister then, right? So if the cabinet minister effectively is the political head that implements policy, so this time around it's slightly different because we have a government of national unity in some form. We certainly have a multi-party government, right? Normally, would it always be that policy is determined by the ruling party? I mean, what I'm trying to ask you is this: is it ever left to a cabinet minister to effect his or her own policy, which may not be in sync with the policy of the ruling party in the past?
It is going to be quite interesting, and thank you so much for that question. Henceforth, it is going to be very interesting because for the first time, we are going to have a coalition arrangement, particularly at the national government, which will obviously mean that, and also they are not really talking about coalition government. They are talking about the government of national unity, which in essence, it will mean that you'll also have ministers who do not really come from a particular, in this case, let's use example of the ANC. You'll have a minister who does not really come from the ANC. So what ought to happen is that there should actually be some kind of a collective across a partisan line, a collective strategic policy or as a collective policy direction for the country, to which each and every minister, despite his partisan orientation, should commit himself or herself to for the purpose of making sure that as a country will have at least a common sense of political vision, which ought to be translated into action. Because now things are not like before, where we used to have one governing party, the ANC, will actually articulate its own political vision, which everybody should actually rally behind it. But this time around, they will still have an obligation to make sure that they come up with a sense of unison, a common sense in terms of the political vision and the political direction of the country.
And would that have been the case in the past as well? What I'm saying, when the ANC was the sole party that governed the country, that what I'm getting at is even then, how much of the cabinet minister appointed would effect his or her own policy, or would it always come from the political party, in that case the ANC, that would filter down, and he or she does not have much leeway to change that policy in the implementation of that department?
You see, that is how it used to work in the past. You'll have the ANC, which will obviously have its own political agenda, and that political agenda will ultimately become the political campaign mandate of the ANC. Immediately after the ANC gets into power, they have to translate their mandate into a policy direction of the state. And each and every minister of the ANC will have to commit to that. So that is how it used to be in the past. But now, like as I was explaining, because we are faced with the reality of the government of national unity, they need to find a way in which all those that will actually be part of the political executive of the government of national unity, they'll have to find a way in which they can all commit themselves to a common policy, political direction for the country.
And I take it that is very, very complex. I'm looking at two examples. For example, the one is the issue of foreign relations and the ANC's position with regard to Russia and Ukraine, and the ANC's position with regard to Israel and Palestine, which would differ greatly, for example, from the DA's position regarding the same four countries I've mentioned. And then the same applies to, say, for example, the Patriotic Alliance in terms of their position regarding foreigners or foreign nationals in our country, right? So again, that would differ greatly, which then suggests that the negotiated agreement between the parties in terms of agreeing on a broad policy that is acceptable to all the parties that would sign to the GNU, well, that's going to be one heck of a debate, isn't it?
It is indeed, and that is where now the ultimate political ingenuity of the president must actually come to bear. Because now he is going to manage, a very complex arrangement at the executive level. And I like the example that you gave, particularly around the question of foreign policy and also around the issue that relates to migration, particularly insofar as the Patriotic Alliance are concerned. So parties ought to master the art of developing a sense of political maturity. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't really be about your partisan interest insofar as a particular policy position is concerned. It's supposed to be a collective policy position. In other words, for us as a country to be able to move forward, we need to have people with a common sense insofar as a common sense of direction insofar as the policy position of the state. In other words, they should actually understand themselves as the custodian of what is in the interest of the state rather than the custodian of what is in the interest of their narrow ideological political interest. So it would need a political maturity for this thing to work, but it will also call upon the leadership of the president who has the national executive authority of the republic on his shoulder. He invoked his ultimate leadership ingenuity to make sure that this thing is being driven towards a common direction that will ensure that the interest of the country is put first, not partisan squabble, not partisan tussles.
Okay, here's the last thing to wrap up. The DA in their leaked letter yesterday made the point about how important it is for the minister and the DG to effectively be in sync. Now, I may take the example of a football team where you have the captain and the coach being on the same side. Is that true? Is that important?
Look, it is critically important, right? It is critically important that there should be a common sense. There should be a common direction. The point that I emphasized earlier on, this is not about the DA or the ANC anymore. This is about what ought to be in the best interest of the country. And until such time that each and every political party commit themselves to that, the better that we could actually be able to take the country forward. And it's quite ironic because if you go through the statement of intent insofar as the government of national unity is concerned, more emphasis is what is in the interest of the country, not what is in the interest of certain partisan position. And I think if they can live up to the spirit and the letter of the statement of intent, of course, including the obligation that the Constitution places on each and every leader of the state, I think we should actually be able to take this country forward.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a very, very lofty wish list, and we hope that you spot on regarding that wish list. Much appreciate your time, Prof. Mase Rumule. Much appreciate your time, and certainly many comments that you may have as the audience, wherever you may be in the world. Feel free to comment on the comments that you've just heard regarding the role of the minister, the cabinet minister, and the role of the DG and how they connect with each other, and then policy. What do you make of all of that? 0614 104 107. Text or voice notes. Welcome. We'll talk to Kaya Sitole in a moment.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, certainly welcome your calls because you add value to the national pulse, no question about that. Sabelo and Kagiso, hi.
Yes, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good indeed. Right, go ahead. What's your point?
No, I just want to comment on this issue of Mr. Zizikodwa and being sworn in Parliament and the step aside.
Yeah.
I think I don't see the inconsistency that you guys are talking about. One, as we understand that step aside, it's not it does not mean you are guilty, and it's not a punishment. It just say you are given time to deal with your case, so that if you are not found guilty at the end, you can go back to your position. So if you are not sworn in on the basis that you are charged, it then means even if tomorrow the case might be withdrawn from the roll, you won't be able to go to court because you would have forfeited your position in Parliament when you are not even found guilty.
Okay,
so
got that. Yeah. So you think it's okay?
No, I think it's fine until it's found guilty. Then if it's found guilty, he can't go to Parliament.
All right, got that.
We should not punish him for being charged, because you can be falsely charged and then you go to court. You are innocent until proven guilty.
Okay.
Let's use that principle.
Well, then the same principle may apply to being a minister. You're innocent until proven guilty. You're not just given time. I think there's a slur on your name if you're being charged, and therefore the step aside kicks in from an ANC perspective. The other thing, in terms of not losing your MP job, well, what about a person losing their job as a minister? I mean, the perks are just far, far greater in comparison. You see, money does matter. And thanks for that call, Sabelo. Talking about money, let's talk about the rand strengthening. Certainly in the last few days, like, why is that the case, and what's likely to happen next? The rand rather buoyant. There's been also buoyancy on the JSE as well, and the ratings agency Moody's, well, they say the government of national unity is likely to support broad policy continuity and economic reform, but it could also lead to risk of instability in the country. But all of that, it seems like they're more favourable in terms of where we appear to be headed, rather than what others may think we should do. Let's try and make sense of this one here. Rents, I suppose. Kaya Sitole with me, independent analyst. Kaya, good chatting to you. Hi.
Good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. And I've noted that Wimbledon comes up pretty shortly, so I would expect you to be in SW19, I think it is, in London sometime soon.
Give me a week and I'll be there.
Well, there you are. You see, I certainly know my numbers, right? Okay, moving away from Six Love. Let's talk about just this, this relationship between the markets and the perceptions of how the country is run. What is your take on that?
So generally, obviously, whenever there is political shifts of the nature that we're witnessing now, everybody who has an interest in the country takes an interest in the matter, and obviously those do include market role players in their various capacities, either as traders or as long-term investors. What they also tend to do is that they obviously tend to formulate long-term positions, in the sense that they take a long-term view of what's likely to happen or not happen with the country's public finances and obviously the country's public spending priorities. And obviously, when there is a change in government, the very first question that they would deliberate on is whether a new government is likely to then materially change the way in which things have been done, and also how that would influence either their investment or their trading strategies. So naturally, given the conversations we've been having over the past couple of days around the formation of the government, there will be those traders that then take the view that if government is formed in a particular way, with particular portfolios being allocated to particular parties or individuals, then this is how their own trading and investment strategies are going to be informed. So you would see them actively trading in and out of the market based on that. But obviously, because most of it is speculation, everybody has to decide whether they want to wait until a finality or they simply want to preempt their own strategies in anticipation of what might happen. So that's really what we've been seeing over the past couple of days. And obviously, when many traders do actively get in and out of the market, it does tend to influence the currency movements in some degree on that particular time horizon.
And should that matter to us?
Well, it should, in the sense that obviously we do know that whether we like it or not, the state does have to depend on capital markets in order for it to borrow and to finance some of its spending priorities. And obviously, in instances where there is the perception that perhaps the state management or the custody of public finances is not as disciplined as it needs to be, those that lend to the state, whether it's international or local investors, then factor in what we refer to as a risk premium. And the risk premium says, look, if this is a government that is going to be disciplined, I'm happy to lend to them at a particular interest rate. But if it's going to be a government whose capacity or ability to remain disciplined to what it says it's going to do, I'm less assured about, then I'm going to charge them a bit more for the transactions that I engage with them in. So that's where the intersection between who is in government and the capital markets actually intersect.
So what do you say to those that appear to make decisions that pander to market perceptions, and those that say, well, that's the ultimate own goal. How can you ever bother about how the markets view us? We should literally give them an up yours. What do you say to that?
I don't know if there are any political role players that literally make fundamentally political decisions based on what the market says. What they tend to do is to factor in what the consequences might be for public finances, and that's where that interplay is. So if you are a government of the day and you already know what your spending priorities are and you want those to be either as affordable or as manageable as possible, you do then sort of keep an eye on what your own decisions might do in relation to the borrowing costs of the particular state. So that's what you might do. But at no point in time does one then say, well, actually, let us not hire this person or that person because somebody out there as a market participant will not like it. Because what we do know is that markets eventually reach a state of equilibrium. So people may be surprised that you are recommending Ashraf as a finance minister, but once they've made peace with that, then they will say, well, actually, this is how we're going to trade with you, this is how we're going to engage with you. So it may have an influence, but I don't think politicians sit around and look at the dashboard of what various traders think and then say, this is who we're going to appoint or not going to appoint. The only exception in the country was really obviously with the Des Van Rooyen example, and even then it was a matter of role players feeling that even they themselves, as either political role players, had absolutely no idea who this person was, and the motivations behind the appointment created a lot of anxiety. So that's when you saw this mass movement behind saying, well, let us not install somebody who may not actually have the credibility to manage public resources in a manner that we prefer them to be done. But the markets are much more fluid and much more complicated.
And I think, your example makes sense. I mean, and again, to borrow the Wimbledon example, can you imagine, somebody being picked as the wild card or seeded number one in Wimbledon was a complete unknown? It would sort of get people to ask questions, and that's completely understandable. But here's the last thought, therefore, right? What is your sense of what has been spoken about, that this government of national unity arrangement is a market-driven arrangement?
No, it's definitely not a market-driven arrangement. The reason we're having a conversation about a government of national unity is because of a decision that South African citizens took on the 29th of May to vote in a particular way. So this was not because the markets decided that government should be a co-governance arrangement between the ANC and everybody else. No. The political parties are responding to what we as citizens have told them. What the markets are then doing is to say, well, actually, within the spectrum of possible partnership and coalitions, we think that a partnership configured in this way involving these particular parties is likely to do the following in relation to the custody of public resources, and since that either all fits in with our already long-term health view or long-term health strategy, then we concur. On the other side, if we think that this alliance is going to be made up of parties that are going to materially alter the course of public spending and public priorities, then actually that may not necessarily be in line with the strategy that we already have. So therefore, we are skeptical until we know what that orientation of the government is going to do. But again, as soon as that government, in whatever form or configuration, pronounces what its spending patterns and resource allocation program is going to be, then the traders in the market will respond accordingly, and they'll find a new equilibrium point, and we're all going to move on.
Okay, we got 30 seconds to news time. Your thoughts on the Moody comment about the GNU likely to have broad economic policy continuity as well as economic reform, but could also lead to risks of instability. Just a quick thought on that.
Well, there's nothing surprising about it because the government of national unity has the ANC at the center. It is the ANC that for the past 30 years has said this is how we think the way public resources and public spending should be, and that's likely to remain the case even if it gets into partnership with other parties. So that's not really a revelation by Moody's. The question of the risk of stability is obviously based on the fact that we have a poor track record when it comes to parties having to work with each other and how stable those alliances can be. And obviously, if this national alliance is going to mirror what we've seen at the local government level, then it means that you aren't in a position to formulate a long-term, a 5-year position or not likely to happen because you do not know what the shape and the form of this government is going to be in the medium and long term. So that's really the value and the utility of that paper in my view.
And that's David Kaya. I totally appreciate your time. And I think, therefore, just to pick up on what you said, let's hope whatever happens, we deliver far more aces and very few double faults in what comes out of our country over the next few weeks, months and years ahead. Much appreciate your time. Enjoy Wimbledon. Let's get the news headlines now with Madupi.
Very good afternoon. In your headlines, scores of wounded protesters in Nairobi, Kenya are being treated in hospital amid clashes with the police in the parliamentary precinct, where as many as 10 people are reported to have been killed. Northern Cape Premier Zamani Soul has refuted claims that there is any decision taken by the ANC provincially to protect the Afrikaner nationalist town of Orania. And Joburg Emergency Services has warned residents to exercise extreme caution when using heating devices amidst the prevailing cold weather. Details of these and other stories coming up at 5.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Parktown has a crash reported before Houghton Drive exit. Santon Drive westbound is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive, and the N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash reported after Allendale Road exit. In KZN on the N3, there's roadworks with major upgrade works between Spaghetti Junction and the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. The N2 northbound is queuing opposite Westwood Mall, and the N3 westbound in Howick has a truck crash reported at Sadara. In Cape Town, the N1 inbound has a stationary truck on the link to the N7 North. The ramp has been closed, queuing traffic in the area. The N2 inbound has a crash reported just before Borchards Quarry Road. That's queuing traffic in both directions. And the N1 outbound has a police incident reported at Plattekloof Road, causing heavy queuing traffic. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, to me, our Minister of Sport, what's your big stories?
Well, we start off with rugby. Rassie Erasmus has announced his 39-man Springbok squad for the upcoming Test series against Ireland on home soil. Erasmus is now able to call upon Bulls players for the first time and has included 6 of Jake White's Chargers in his squad, as well as Leinster-bound lock Archie Snyman. Springboks captain Siya Kolisi is also recalled after finishing his first season in France with Racing 92 and is joined by Kobus Reinach, who helped Montpellier retain the top 15 status. Erasmus has called up 2 uncapped players in his squad in the form of Bulls hooker Johan Grobler and front rower Jan-Hendrik Wessels. Meanwhile, New Zealand Rugby have unveiled their latest jersey design for the 2024 international season, commemorating 25 years of collaboration with its kit supplier. Now, the new All Blacks and Black Ferns jerseys feature a classic black base with unique silver details, including an enlarged fern emblem, the Adidas logo, and the iconic 3 stripes down the shoulders for the first time. Then in golf, after being selected as one of the 12 young KwaZulu-Natal golfers to join KZN Golf's high performance program, Harry Clayton hopes to use this opportunity to take his game to the next level. The program has been set up by KZN Golf, which will see some of the province's most talented junior golfers take part in a number of camps ahead of the final selection of the team to take part in the national IPT at the end of the year. Then in tennis, Novak Djokovic is encouraged by his progress after undergoing minor knee surgery less than 3 weeks ago. But the 7-time Wimbledon champion says that he will only play in the grass court Grand Slam next month if he is able to fight for a title. The 37-year-old picked up the injury to his right knee during his 4th round win at the French Open and pulled out of the quarterfinals before having surgery on the 6th of June, putting his Wimbledon and Olympic hopes in jeopardy. But the Serb posted videos of his return to training on Instagram last week before arriving at the All England Club on Sunday and immediately ramping up his preparations. Then in cricket, the Proteas will face Afghanistan in the semi-final on Thursday, and coach Walter has complimented his captain for being innovative with their bowling lineup, especially in the game against the West Indies.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, sort of no one would ever have planned to roll out the bowling lineup as it did yesterday, to be fair. I don't think KG's ever bowled his first over in the 18th over of a T20 in his career, so which kind of summed up the flexibility quite nicely. It was great to see Aiden bowling a bit more than he has. I've been pushing him to do that repeatedly, so it was nice to see that he backed himself to do that. And yeah, I suppose given the nature of our lineup as it was yesterday with the 3-seam, 3-spin, is to be able to sum up the conditions very quickly and understand how to best utilize your resources. That is a real skill to the game. I mean, we stay in contact, myself and the skipper, during the game through whatever means. But largely he is running the show there and making those decisions. So it's great to see him be innovative and to seize on certain moments in the game. And then from a batting point of view, it's really just the state of the game, where the game is at. We try to match up our batters with where the game is at and allow them to enter into the game where best suits the way that they play. So, that's not an exact science. It doesn't always happen exactly as you want to, but for the most part, that's what
Well, that said, it is a wrap from my side. But before I go, Ashraf, I'd like to pick your brain on something.
Oh, okay.
It's quite interesting, and there's a whole debate with regards, now that India is also in the semi-final.
So India, England, South Africa, Afghanistan.
Yes, with that. But it's interesting that the ICC stated a long time ago that India would play their semi-final at Guyana well in advance. So now there's a whole debate going on about the integrity of cricket. If India would have known well in advance that if they make it to the semi-final, they're going to play at Guyana.
It doesn't matter where they feature in certain groups.
It doesn't matter. They just say if they qualify for the semis, this is where they're going to play. And perhaps on the other side, one can say it makes commercial sense. They're going to make more money there. However, what about the other teams that are in the semis?
So where's the other semi-final being played? The South Africa game.
So
India will play England in Guyana. That's what you're telling me, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. While you're thinking about it, here's my quick thought about it. I mean, first of all, for any ruling body to upfront say this country's semi-final will be played at this venue no matter what happens is ridiculous, right? Yeah. And it reflects where the ICC is now and the ICC's total dependence, I would think, on India, because the world has shifted in cricket. Before there's England, Australia, and they still have big clout, but it's those three countries. The rest of them are just, including South Africa, Samcoms, to borrow a South African phrase, and that's not good enough, right? The second part, this isn't meddling, but here's the thought that came to my mind immediately. That's why I asked you, where's the other semi-final? Do you know where it's been played?
It's at Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, so both are in the West Indies, right? As opposed to the USA, where the earlier games were played on wickets that were not very good for batting. Just my quick guess, okay? The West Indies are made up of effectively people from Africa, the African continent, heritage-wise, and people from the plantations of India, who also send there as indentured laborers like those that came to KZN, okay? Do you know that of all the countries in the Caribbean that make up the West Indies, the only country that from that grouping that is in South America is Guyana. Guyana is in South America. Okay, and Guyana has a higher population of Indian heritage nationals than the rest of the West Indies. Trinidad and Tobago is second, I think, but like Barbados, Jamaica has them, but not as much as Guyana. So greats like Rohan Kanhai, I think it is, and Alban Kalicharan all come from this country in South America called Guyana. Hopefully that makes sense to you.
Well, there's the explanation.
Anything else? No. Let's talk politics and Al Jamaa coming up next.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
In fact, before we get to Al Jamal's comments and your thoughts as well, let's get to the markets with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good chatting to you as always. Brait has their yearly results, right? And Exaro too.
Yeah, afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners. Remember, Brait is an investment company, and then that invests mainly in privately owned businesses. I mean, their Virgin Active makes almost 67% of their total assets, and 18% is made up by Premier Foods, with fashion retailer De Look making up almost 7%. And Ashraf, as an investment holding company, its key reporting metric is the net asset value, and which fell by 8%, but the loss as headline loss per share improved by 81%, sorry about that, and we saw Virgin Active membership growth and yield increases helping to drive revenue growth and profits, and Premier continued to improve or outperform operationally, and the guys paid a maiden dividend as promised, and we heard yesterday Ethos Capital saying that they would like to unbundle their stake in Brait, and Ashraf, since February 2020, Brait has been monetizing their asset, that is to optimize a return of capital to shareholders, and so far they've realized almost 9.1 billion. And as Exar in their pre-close message, they said the average Richards Bay coal terminal export price for the first half declined by 9.8%, total production down 14%, total sales volumes down 12%, and because of that reduced demand coming from Eskom based on Eskom's internal or their latest internal plan, and the bearish trend on pricing continued from 2023 into the first quarter of 2024, mainly driven by the sufficient supply of coal in major markets. Here you are talking the likes of Europe, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, but there was a late recovery in the prices, and mainly driven by geopolitics and transnet issues, and then that resulting in tight supply.
Right, let's talk about local and global markets then.
You know, there is some stock rotation out of the big tech stocks. We know they've been driving the markets globally to the likes of banks and energy, but that unfortunately turned the global markets lower, and the dollar bulls were still charging on, but gains limited, and that's ahead of the release of that US key inflation gauge, the dollar seen as a safe haven because stocks are struggling. And one Fed official today said she still sees a number of upside risks to the inflation outlook, and stated that they need to keep borrowing costs elevated for some time. And locally, our economy unfortunately lost 67,000 jobs in Q1. That's almost a 0.6% decline quarter on quarter, and a stronger dollar is pressurizing oil prices, and focus is now shifting to that Friday's US inflation data. Brent crude is down 1.5% at $84 a barrel, and gold traders, Ashraf, are waiting for more certainty, and that's on the timing of future US rate hikes, while the weaker Chinese currency was supporting yellow metal demand in Asia, and those buyers that side are taking highly leveraged positions, but unfortunately gold is still down 0.5% at 2,323. Platinum is down 0.8% at 991. The DAX is down 0.9, CAC down 0.7, FTSE just like the Dow, they're all down 0.3%, but S&P is up 0.2%, with the JSE down 0.8%, industrials down 1.2%, financials down 0.7%, resources down 0.2%, and the rand unfortunately fell almost 0.5% compared to the US dollar is now 18.18 and 23.03 to the pound and 19.43 to the euro.
Perfect. Great chatting to you. We'll do it again tomorrow, Makwe. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure.
Okay, there we are. Right, we'll chat to Hanif Hendricks from Al Jamaa in a moment, but let's get to some calls first.
SAFM Youth Month Takeover. SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what the two compelling issues facing our 30 years of democracy are, and we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply.
Durban is open for business and investment. A large delegation from the United States of America, including captains of industry, business, investors, finances, decision makers, and high-profile leaders will attend the 2024 Resurgence Durban Conference to explore and maximize investment opportunities in Durban. Be part of the Resurgence Durban Conference taking place at the Durban ICC from the 17th to the 21st of July 2024. Durban is forging ahead with its plan of action that is aimed at boosting trade and investments within South Africa, the African continent, and the rest of the world. Businesses must register now to exhibit at the conference. Closing date is the 30th of June 2024. To register for the Resurgence Durban Conference and for more information, visit www.resurgenceconference.org.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more, just to be the one who buys your car. We'll come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Say ROBOT_BO the Cashman SABC 1, 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Deal or no deal, celebrity game. Let's get it.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, what moves the National Pulse? You have any thoughts on those many conversations we had around the makeup of the cabinet, on the conversation about the markets with Kaya Sitoli, on the issues of Zizi Kodwa with Wayne Duvenage, and the goings on in Kenya? There's so much going on in that part of the world. By the way, we'll chat. Well, not we're going to play a recording of a conversation that John Sloper had with the SABC earlier today after he was sworn in as an MP, so look out for that coming up after 5. Let's, however, get to the callers now. Cleo in Mofolo. Hi, Cleo.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Pleasure. Right. Go ahead. What's your point?
Yes. I just want to say that, we the voters, we the people are just the voting cows. Because right now, all the negotiations and deals are made behind closed doors. Mm-hmm. So who does it benefit? It benefits. It means the only people who are benefiting there are those in the patronage system. I mean, look at what happened today. All those characters that were sworn in Parliament, a majority of them, they are very questionable. I mean, how do you have such? In a country where there are so many people with credibility, how do you still have back into Parliament people like Zizi Kodwa, John Thope? I mean, I'm not judgmental, but I'm saying in the interest of good governance, you don't do that. And all we need is transparency and openness. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Ashraf.
Well, the fact is clear. You can be judgmental. I mean, that's your right. You have an opinion to make. And I think, I must tell you, both from John Sloper together with Zizi Kodwa, it doesn't look good. I mean, that's the bottom line. It doesn't look good at all. Thanks for that call, Cleo. What do you make about their swearing in as MPs today? Let's get further thoughts. And in terms of, it probably is it should be 1 man, 2 votes, because 1 vote for the party you vote for and 1 vote for which coalition arrangement or multi-party arrangement you'd like to have, isn't it? It's not going to happen, but I mean, I always thought that should be the case, right? Let's get another.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. The ANC is continuing to disrespect their members and their voters. I'm saying this because this code was sworn in today. Out of many good members and voters who do not have dark clouds hanging over their heads, what's so special about this God? What's so special about him? Yeah, the ANC doesn't learn and will never learn. We just come out of an election a month ago. Look where they are. But that's nothing for them. So yeah, that's ANC for you. Notorious Mabelana in Skagula village. Sharp, sharp.
Did you say notorious? Okay, just noted. That's what you said. Yeah, it's a month ago. Can you believe it? A month since that election this week. Sure, lots has happened in this country since that date, May 29. Here's another comment.
Hello, Mr. Ashraf Garda. Onamo, that is a nice name. And Radio South Africa listeners, you know, the main duty of MEC, Minister of Executive Council, is to implement the legislation from national, provincial, and even local, possible. But what is very crucial is provincial and national. So the policies that are enacted nationally is the one who makes sure that the DG, the HODs, implement those things. So without the Minister of Councils, the government will never run smoothly, since they sit together from provincial perspectives and come with the legislations that will implement the projects and the policies and the acts and the regulations. That is the main duty of MEC. Without MEC, it means the parliament or the provincial legislature, it will be like a footstool. That car that is dead when you take it. Submission, WP Rams Limpopo.
Okay, got that. Wow. Well, nice lesson there in terms of understanding it. Here's another one on the ANC.
Hi, Mr. Ashraf. I think the ANC made a huge mistake by allowing Mr. Garda to be sworn in. I think that's a huge mistake. I wonder what they will say when they been asked the reason why they allowed him. I'm Spenge Shibas from High Flats in KZN.
Okay, there you are, High Flats. Well, you're not the first person who's saying so. Huge mistakes, right? Okay, let's do this. Let's connect with another important person who've made decisions and their party, and they've made a different decision a few days later. I'm talking about the Al Jamaa party, right? So with me is Hanif Hendricks, who's the leader of the party. Hanif, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Certainly. I was saying a month is a long time. I remember meeting you just after the election at the IEC. So much has happened since then. Let's talk about what's happened to your party. On Friday last week, I remember you effectively chaired a press conference that included, the grouping that called themselves either the Progressive Alliance or Progressive Forum. But a few days later, you're part of another grouping. Explain.
Yeah, look, we were approached by the EFF. They came to visit me in my office in Cape Town that we need to start caucusing and assist one another with the way forward and hear what the best approach is to common issues. And one of the issues that we were confronted with, and we decided that, we must meet as a caucus, as a group, and not individually, was how can we reduce the influence of the DA, seeing that the ANC is a minority government and that they are required they need another 10% or more in order to establish the office bearers for Parliament and also later on elect a cabinet. So we took a collective decision that we will throw our weight behind the ANC in order to dilute the influence of the DA. So one of the options was obviously whether to join the government of national unity, and it was left to the different political parties to decide what they think will be in their best interests. The ANC, the EFF was the first political party to be approached by the ANC to bolster the minority government and get them closer to 50%. And the EFF decided that they are not in a position to do so, and it then came to our notice that they are now the only other party that they could approach that has numbers would either be MK, which was not willing to do so, so they only had left the DA. So when it came to our attention that they are now entering into discussions with the DA, we felt that, this is an emergency. We need to set aside our differences and we need to throw our weight behind the ANC. So on the eve of the first sitting, we also met as a group, and President Malema said that he doesn't have a quarrel to nominate Cyril Ramaphosa as a president of the country. But the problem was that the EFF among themselves was not ready to sign an agreement with the ANC that they are prepared to vote for the ANC, whereas the Democratic Alliance, 1 hour before the proceedings began, they signed, and that is why. And that is how things unfolded.
Okay, all right. Let me move on. I'm just concerned about time. Khanil, I'm just going to move on because of time, because we're getting on to news. So that's what happened on that Friday. But at that stage, it was very clear your position as a party. You were part of this progressive forum or alliance, which was outside of the ANC. Then when did you then change your mind, and why?
We changed our mind because the rules of engagement changed. The letter of intent changed 2 times, and the final version was changed at the request of Bantu Holomisa, and he put the concerns of the Progressive Caucus to the ANC. So number one is, it was then clear that there is no grand coalition between the ANC and the DA. Number 2, there will be no proportional allocation of seats. Number 3, that the DA won't have the right to veto any party that wants to join the government of national unity. And also number 4, that the DA won't have any veto powers, and that the DA will be treated like any other party who leads the coalition. And then the overall thing was that the ANC wants to have all 18 political parties to be part of the government of national unity. So we were now comfortable with the letter of intent, because remember that the next step is to form a steering committee, and that steering committee will form a government of national unity.
Yeah.
We then wanted clarity on the document that was before us. We met with the big 5 of the ANC, that excludes the president and the deputy. We then met with a delegation of the NEC. We met with a delegation of the National Working Committee, and this was under the chairmanship of David Makura. So they unpacked to us that everything leads to a social compact. Before that, there will be a policy conference, and I would imagine they would discuss foreign policy, fiscal policy, other policies. Before that, there will be a national dialogue where there will be civilian oversight, and civilian oversight together with parties will look at the manifestos of the 10 parties who are part of the coalition, and then decide on which are the priorities and provide the budget for it.
All right, we've got about a minute to go. So I understand the shift, and it's quite a dramatic shift in terms of the contribution of the UDM leader, Bantu Holomisa. So, I know Helen Ziller before said that she spoke about saving the day from the EFF's deputy commander, right? But in this case here, you could say Holomisa saved the day, certainly in terms of how you see it. But as part of the GNU, the DA, a party that you've been very, very critical of, they're still part of that GNU, so you're going to go govern with them, together with other parties. What do you feel about that?
Look, we're going to govern against them because there is even a dispute resolution procedure, which means that the parties are not going to agree on many issues, and we will fight to the end to push our position in the support of other parties. And we felt that the ANC on issues critical to us will need our support. And that's why the PAC, UDM and other parties joined. We were the last to join, and we only joined until we were satisfied that there will be a social compact.
So very quickly, if you're satisfied and you were very much part of that caucus with the EFF, then what? And if the purpose is to reduce the influence of the DA within the GNU, and you've done that, right? What then stops the EFF joining in as well?
Look, we feel that the EFF will eventually join, but they've sent a letter to say that they're adamant they're not going to join. And, so that is quite a surprise. And now that MK is also on board, I don't think they're going to join. So the EFF is holding its cards close to its chest. An hour before we decided to sign the letter of intent, I contacted the EFF. I spoke to Savambu and the General Secretary. We consulted with the PAC, with UDM, why did you guys go over? And that all informed the decision for Al Jamaa. We didn't want to be irrelevant in the National Assembly because all the power has now shifted to what is called a political assembly, which is part of a government of national unity.
All right. And you're saying the EFF, you expect them to join up at some stage anyway?
That's correct, yeah.
All right.
When we heard an hour before the deadline that the EFF may join, we didn't want to be caught napping. And, we always have, whenever the DA is involved, we have reservations.
Okay, let's leave it at that.
So it was a last-minute decision that we took, and we took the plunge.
And you've certainly done that, Hanif Hendricks from the Al Jamaa party. Thanks for that. Let's get the news now. I think it should be Madubi. It's 5 o'clock. In fact, it's Greg House, as always. 5 o'clock. Greg.
Thank you and good afternoon to you, Ashraf. In this news update, clashes in Kenya's capital and a warning over using heaters this winter. Good day to you. Scores of wounded demonstrators in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, are being treated at the Kenyatta National Hospital amid clashes with police in the parliamentary precinct, where as many as 10 people are reported to have been killed. The BBC reports that a section of the Kenyan parliament has been damaged by fire. Demonstrators are angry about proposed new tax hikes that the Kenyan government wants to implement in a bid to resolve its budgetary deficit. These people explain why they joined the protests.
We as the people of Kenya have no problem with paying taxes, but we want to see what the value of our money is doing.
As a country, we are not heard. It's like we just elected leaders and they don't serve us. They just have their own personal interests. So our presence here is very important.
They need to tell us, excuse me, what did you do with 3.1 trillion shillings that you collected from Kenyans? There's nothing to show for it. That's what we're saying. That's why we're here.
The ANC says it appreciates the fact that the Congress of Traditional Leaders Contralesa has put together a working group on the role of traditional leaders in the government of national unity. In a statement, the party says it met with Contralesa leaders in line with the GNU's Statement of Intent principles. The Statement of Intent, signed by 10 political parties, commits the GNU parties to a national dialogue with all sectors of society. The ANC says in preparation for the national dialogue, it'll work with Contralesa in a coordinated manner in all provinces regarding the role of traditional leaders. The Northern Cape Premier, Samani Saul, has denied claims that there's any decision taken by the ANC provincially to protect the Afrikaner nationalist town of Orania. He says in their engagements with different political parties, the FF Plus came with two concept documents. One focuses on the formulation or constitution of the provincial government, and the second document is about the status and future developments in Orania. The Premier says these are just discussion documents and not decisions.
Some of the issues which they are suggesting in the first concept document on the constitution of the provincial government, Freedom Front Plus is quite modest and it's quite reasonable, and we are going to ensure that those things happen. And one of those things is that the single member who's a member of the provincial legislature becomes the chairperson of the portfolio committee on Cogstar. But the second concept document raises a whole lot of issues, and we took that document to the national negotiation team, and the national negotiation team has got a preliminary response on that document, which we shared with the Freedom Front. But we've not taken any decision in the Northern Cape to protect Orania.
3 women have been killed in a week in Bloemfontein and Botshabelo in the Free State. A 23-year-old woman's body was discovered near a stadium in Botshabelo yesterday. In a second incident, a 39-year-old woman was stabbed to death, allegedly by her boyfriend, when they were returning from church. Meanwhile, a man will appear in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court for a bail application tomorrow for allegedly killing his girlfriend by running over her with his car. A member of the woman's family, Sidisa Mkhlanyane.
You know, this thing has broke us really bad because she was a pillar. Remember, she was a firstborn here at home. So she was a pillar. Anything that is happening, my parents would call her, myself, my sister would call her. So it really broke us, more especially that she has 2 girls and they are very young. You know, girls, they need to be very close to their mother.
Johannesburg Emergency Services has warned residents to exercise extreme caution when using heating devices such as heaters amidst the prevailing cold weather. Emergency Services spokesperson Robert Malautsi elaborates.
From our side as the City of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services, we remain on high alert, monitoring all 7 regions of the city so that if there's any emergencies which might have been reported, we can be able to respond as quickly as possible.
The top story is that scores of wounded demonstrators in the Kenyan capital Nairobi are being treated at the Kenyatta National Hospital amid clashes with police, where as many as 10 people are reported to have been killed in the parliamentary precinct. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khus.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Mkalele insists Bafana at COSAFA Cup can provide senior stars, and World are confident ahead of T20 World Cup semi-final. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N3 southbound in Bedfordview has a stationary vehicle near Van Buren Road, and Old Johannesburg Road northbound in Centurion has delays near the N1 highway. The M7 westbound in Pinetown is queuing towards the N3 highway. The N3 in both ways is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 southbound in Howick on Wednesday will be closed between Balgowan and Lions River exits from 10 a.m. to 12 noon for urgent bridge repair works. In Cape Town, Main Road northbound is slow moving at Cork Bay. The N1 Service Road outbound is slow moving towards the N7 highway exit. The N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound is queuing towards the N1 highway interchange, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving through Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I'll tell you what, I don't know what to make of what's going on in our country regarding the government of national unity. I think we need to play that last bit of Hanif Hendricks again, and I'm telling Keys maybe we need to do that, because Hanif Hendricks is saying that they're not on side regarding the DA. We know that, right? But at some stage when this alliance, this progressive alliance or caucus got together, they were going to mobilize against the DA. When they realized the DA were going to get into the GNU anyway, they realized that they needed to fight the DA within. Then he said that Bantu Holomisa, when he came on board, he effectively changed the rules of the agreement, which I think is a conversation in its own right, particularly around the issues of representation for the cabinet, which would not be on percentage lines. I would suggest that it would be more tilted again in favor of the president's discretion. That's significant. Then he said at the end that, in fact, he's pretty sure the EFF will be on board sometime soon. And in fact, even an hour before he signed, he had spoken to the EFF, and he was concerned they may also join before Al-Jamaa signs up with the government of national unity, and he still expects the EFF to be part of that soon, ostensibly to act as and these are my words, to act as this buffer against the DA influence within the government of national unity, more so now that, according to him, the government of national unity is very much wider than just 3 parties, the ANC, the DA, and the IFP. So there you are. Make of that what you will. Comments, thoughts, I welcome it as always, right? 0614 104 107, text or voice notes to the call in 086 000 2032. Maybe here's the big question. What's next regarding the GNU? It's like playing chess. It's your turn. Pawn, bishop, archbishop, and who you're protecting, the king or the queen. Let's work that out. Now, talking about all of those pawns in the bigger game, John Slope, we now know, is an MP. The person who was impeached as a judge is now an MP representing the MK party. And not just that, he'd be effectively their leader in Parliament, so I understand, right? But after he was sworn in today, or took oath, he then spoke to the SABC and had a lot of things to say now. And we're going to play the interview, and then we're going to get your comment, and we'll get further analysis on what he said in a few minutes after that. So John Slope, part of that group of 58 MK members, spoke to the SABC's Bulelani Philip, and this is what he said.
Remember, President Zuma is still alive, who founded this party. He is the president of the party, but unfortunately he can't be in parliament. You are aware of that because of that's what the courts have decided. He's still challenging that. Right. So I am the leader of the party in parliament, and Mr. Sihle Ngubane, standing over there, is the chief whip.
What's your first point of call as the leader?
Well, as the leader of party, okay. Number one, what I consider to be important, it is to work very closely with my colleagues, especially the chief whip, Secretary General, and the spokesperson for the party. That's number one. Once you have solid leadership, and we take decisions collectively, and we don't undermine each other, and we work together. So my first challenge is to build a team, trust, so that we understand each other very well, so that there is no misunderstanding between us. But most importantly, President Zuma is still the president of the party. I don't want people to get between us and say Zuma said this in a rally and Hlophe said that. For that reason, I said to President Zuma a couple of days ago when I visited him at his home in Nkandla, and I'm not hiding that. I go to Nkandla whenever I want to. I said to him, it is very important for us, this is myself now and President Zuma, to be seen together in public rallies so that there is no divided leadership, MK in Parliament and MK outside Parliament. So you are going to see me wearing traditional outfit with a spear, Nomqhele, and everything else that Zuma wears, because I'm an African as well.
The question will arise, Dr. Hlophe, that as the leader of caucus, there are structures that need to be set up by Parliament.
Yes.
Would you accept a nomination to serve on the Judicial Service Commission?
I would take the matter back to the party. If I'm nominated, right, I don't know how Parliament works. If I'm nominated...
If the party says that go and serve there, would you accept?
If my party says that, yes, I would. If my party has confidence in me and my party deploys me, I would see no reason for refusing that. I would. The answer is yes.
Would you not see any conflict?
There is no conflict at all. I'm not a judge. I don't even want to be called a judge, but people still call me a judge. I don't call myself a judge. I call myself Dr. Hlophe because I have a doctorate in law. Nobody will take that away from me. Even Cyril Ramaphosa will never take that away from me. He took away the title of a judge, but that I'm Dr. Hlophe, he will never take it away from me.
All right. Umkhonto Wesizwe Party, are you going to participate or not in this government of national unity?
The government of national unity to us, first of all, there are parties that are participating in the government of national unity, which have made it clear that they don't want to work with the MK party. That is regrettable, but the feeling is mutual. We also don't want to work with those parties which do not represent. We only want to work with progressive forces in this country. I have in mind the EFF, I have in mind the ATM, and other progressive parties. Parties with a history of standing for poor people. And the ANC, with respect, is no longer a party for poor people.
But MK,
yes,
does it want to join the GNU or not?
No, to the best of my knowledge, we don't want to join the GNU because also we are not wanted. So why should we want to go to where we are not wanted? In our view, the government of national unity, we all know what had happened. The ANC lost the election. Quite rightly, we believe it lost the election by a huge margin than it actually presented itself at the end of the day. And this government of national unity, in our view, is not going to work. It's going to implode, like all coalition governments. We've seen that everywhere in the world. It is a government of national convenience, in our respectful view. It's not unity, it's just mutual convenience. You do this, I will do that. You cover my back, I will cover your back. You do this, there's trade-off and so on. You do this, I will do that. It's going to implode.
Lastly, what can we expect from Umkhonto Wesizwe Party caucus? Should we expect the dynamics similar to that of the EFF? or not?
Our position is clear. I said it earlier on, and I said it in the morning. I believe that we must work in a very constructive way in Parliament. Of course, we are new in Parliament. Some of the colleagues, I will learn a lot from them. But we would like to engage in a very constructive, courteous, and respectful manner. We consider ourselves to be the official opposition, and I think the official opposition is given 5 minutes or so. That's the time we want to utilize optimally. And for that reason, rest assured, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of each and everyone here. We're not going to engage in petty politics. We know the issues that are critical. It's the issue of land first. It's the issue of transforming important sectors of the economy, such as mining, agriculture, and so on. So the issues that we want to bring to the fore, that must be debated thoroughly, and that we must find a solution. So there is clearly no time for petty politics in our view.
Okay, there we are. I'm not a judge, although people call me a judge, but I'm always a doctor, and nobody can ever take that away from me. That's the words of the person who would lead the Umkhonto we Sizwe party, the MK party in Parliament, Dr. John Slope, part of that interview, a longer interview with Bulelani Phillips. So what do you make of that interview? Particularly how he sees himself. They're not wanted as part of the GNU, and we don't want to be with them either. And a whole lot more in terms of progressives and those who are not so progressive. Comments, as always, you know that you can also tweet on social media. Just go to the X platform, which means we can even comment even after the show. Certainly happy to get your thoughts on that. Just use that hashtag, The National Pulse, and tag SAFM Radio, tag myself, Ashraf Garda, but do the same on Facebook as well. Right, we'll have comment, as in commentary, on what you've just heard in a moment.
Am I left or right-brained? I'm leaning right. Right? However, I do have some left-brain tendencies. Perhaps I'm left-brained with right-brain tendencies. Am I overthinking this? I don't want to be caught underthinking it. Or maybe I'm overthinking about underthinking the overthinking. Which am I?
At RMB, the simple answer is both. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity that doesn't make you choose, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Not every grand idea turns out the way it was envisioned. You know what I'm talking about. That attempted upside-down kiss inspired by that superhero in the pouring rain that resulted in pneumonia and broken bones. That Tokyo drifting that ended up in an embarrassing explanation to your insurance. That online order going through your partner's phone. Hi, cut. Join Richard Hammond as he takes you on a journey of clips from the main show that highlights some of their boldest stunt attempts, a number of which didn't go as planned. Tune into Top Gear, Ambitious and Rubbish, Fridays at 9 p.m. to channel your inner vroom with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So many people talking about GNU, and it goes on all the time, and I think we'll continue talking about that for a while, isn't it? One of the big issues, one of the big topics of the day that's now part of our lexicon. Right, Zakhele Ndlovu is with me. He's a political analyst based at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Zakhele, as always, good chatting to you live on the National Pulse.
Yes, hi. Good evening, and also good evening to your listeners.
Now, we thought we'd pick your brain, having heard that interview with John Slope regarding, his position now being part of the MK in Parliament. Overall, what do you make of what he said?
Well, it's very interesting. First of all, he made it clear that the MK party is not going to be joining the government of national unity. And obviously, he also added that they don't feel welcome, so they are not going to join. So that is, I think, has made things clear for everybody that the MK is going to be the official opposition he also pointed out that they've taken away the title judge from him. We know that he was impeached, but he also made it clear that they won't take away his title of Doctor of Law. So, but overall, let's hope that what he said, that they're going to play a constructive role as the official opposition, and that they're going to, retain integrity in the institution of Parliament. So let's hope that everything that he said about making sure that they are going to play the constructive role is exactly what they are going to do.
Did it come across in the interview and maybe other comments, because there was a Q&A even after this interview, right, where it came about the actual role they're going to play? When he says constructive, it's so open to interpretation, right? I mean, did he express his views on how they will use this role as opposition party?
But I think he implied that we are not going to see this theoretic that the EFF that that is associated with the EFF, so that they are going to engage and not, we are not going to see any drama, so to speak. So I think that's welcome. The good thing I like about him is that he's someone who has background in law, and it would be nice if our parliament was full of people with a law background, because after all, it's a law-making house. So you do need more people with the law background. And I would hope that the other 57 members of MK party who are joining him, some of them have some law background. And I think if that is the case, we could see them playing a more constructive role. However, you want to define that.
How then do you think they will play that role? I mean, one is getting his thoughts, but in terms of your opinion, I mean, how would they then be an effective opposition? Because one thing is being there, and yes, they're not going to disrupt, but they also want to be an effective opposition that truly plays a role where the people of our nation will look up and say, well, never mind, we may differ on some policies. We like the policing or the overseeing or the pressure role that you're playing. Do you see them doing that effectively?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, for me, one of the most important things that the legislature plays is to hold the executive accountable. So I think they need to make sure that all these mechanisms of holding the executive accountable are done in a manner that shows that they understand what the role of Parliament is. So, and then, of course, in the portfolio committees, we expect them to play a more important role, be the portfolio committee on education, on finance, on health, and so on. So, I think that the DA tried to play that role, but I think that the MK has a chance to take it to another level.
All right, talking about another level. So, we had a chat to Hanif Hendricks, the leader of the Al Jamaa party, a few minutes ago, in fact, right? And he said a lot of different things. As you know, he was part of that progressive caucus and now part of the GNU. But he made the point about the shift for Al Jamaa based upon the shift in the GNU's let's call it rules of engagement that was put together, and he suggested that the person who played a key role in that was Bantu Olamisa, the leader of the UDM. This is what he said.
We changed our mind. We changed our mind because the rules of engagement changed. The letter of intent changed 2 times, and the final version was changed at the request of Bantu Olamisa, and he put the concerns of the progressive caucus to the ANC. So number one is, it was then clear that there is no grand coalition between the ANC and the DA. Number two, there will be no proportional allocation of seats. Number 3, that the DA won't have the right to veto any party that wants to join the government of national unity. And also number 4, that the DA won't have any veto powers, and that the DA will be treated like any other party who leads the coalition.
So what do you make of that? I mean, if you listen to that very clearly, Zakele, one is saying that the role of Bantu Holomisa when the UDM came on board ensured a shift in the rules of engagement with the GNU, and the shift effectively minimized the so-called veto power of the DA and entrenched the position of the president and his discretion.
This is an interesting one. Look, the ANC got 40% of the votes. The DA, I think, got 21 point something percent. So which means that effectively, if the DA were to pull out of the coalition, this coalition government would collapse. Now, how do you treat the DA like the rest of the other coalition partners when it has just over half of the ANC's votes? So I mean, it appears to me that if they try to treat the DA like the other coalition partners, that's going to be a recipe for this coalition government to not work.
Well, in fact, if I take what Ashraf Hendricks is saying, he says it is exactly that position that convinced people like him and his party to be part of the GNU to limit the influence of the DA. Do you think, therefore, that could be the reason why there's a delay on the cabinet? That means the position of the DA-ANC agreement was much clearer a few days ago, and it's a lot more hazy now, and therefore, in the attempt to limit the influence of the DA, the numbers are less, and that's why they're having the type of arguments, perhaps, that they are having, which has caused them not to announce the cabinet as yet.
Yeah, again, if you take all the coalition partners, you remove the DA, the ANC cannot form a coalition government because the numbers don't add up. So the DA is the critical part of this coalition government. I prefer to call it a coalition government because, government of national unity sounds nice. That it doesn't really tell us the exact story. The story is that we have a coalition government made up of the ANC and the DA, and the other parties are just adding numbers, because if they were to withdraw, the coalition would still stand, but it won't stand if the DA decides to pull out of this.
All right, I'm just guessing that I think that could be the reason why we've had the delays in the cabinet announcement. Then Ashraf Hendricks, remember, as part of the Progressive Caucus, was very on-side with regard to the MK party as well as, in particular, the EFF, right? And I asked him about the position then of the EFF, and this is what he had to say.
Look, we feel that the EFF will eventually join, but they've sent a letter to say that they're adamant they're not going to join. And, so that is quite a surprise. And now that MK is also on board, I don't think they're going to join. So the EFF is holding its cards close to its chest. An hour before we decided to sign the letter of intent, I contacted the EFF. I spoke to Savambu and the General Secretary. We consulted with the PAC, with UDM, why did you guys go over? And that all informed the decision for Al-Jamah. We didn't want to be irrelevant in the National Assembly because all the power has now shifted to what is called a political assembly, which is part of a government of national unity.
All right. Okay, and then so he feels even later on, Zakele, that when I pressed him, that at some stage the EFF will join in with the GNU. Do you think that's likely to happen?
I think at this point in time, it's going to be very difficult for the EFF to join the government of national unity. Obviously, the door is open for them to join, but I think that knowing what the EFF is all about and the noises that they have been making, I don't think that it would send a message to their supporters that they can be trusted, because the EFF has taken a hardline stance. So we expect them to continue doing that, because that's what defines the EFF. So if they join this government of national unity, they would come across as not honest about the things that they say they stand for.
Unless, and here's the big question, unless that happens at a time when the DA decides they don't want to be part of the GNU, then the door is open for them because the DA and the EFF, as we know, will not stay together. Okay, let's leave it at that, Sakela and Global. So much to think about just about every single day. That's why I say, what moves the national pulse? Well, multiple things all linked to the big issues in our country. 5:30, here's the news headlines with Greg.
Quick look at the headlines of this half hour. An African affairs writer and commentator says it's time for the Kenyan president to call for calm in his country as protests against proposed new taxes continue. The newly sworn-in parliamentary leader of the MK party, John Hlophe, says the party will be engaging in mature yet robust politics. And a political analyst says the decision by the ANC leadership to bring back its corruption-accused former minister Zizi Kodwa as an MP will have a detrimental effect on the ANC's reputation. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Bedfordview has a stationary vehicle near Van Buren Road. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown Interchange towards Boysons. Witkoppen Road in Johannesburg North has a crash near Pritchard Street. The N1 northbound in Midrand has a stationary bus reported before New Road exit. Allendale Road eastbound in Klookop has delays towards Mastiff Road, and Dulmus Road in Pretoria has a crash reported at Solomon Mutlango Drive. In KZN, the N3 eastbound has a crash before Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. The N3 westbound in Howick has a truck crash reported at Sadara, and the N3 westbound has a stationary truck just before the Camperdown exit reported. In Cape Town, Chapman's Peak Drive is closed due to rockfalls. The N1 inbound is queuing towards Sable Road off-ramp. The N7 southbound is queuing towards the N1 highway interchange, and the N2 inbound has a crash reported before Borchards Quarry Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
We spoke about cricket earlier, we spoke about rugby. There's also the issue of the COSAFA Cup in football. Hi, Tumi.
Absolutely. South Africa will look to get their 2024 COSAFA Cup campaign off to a strong start when they face Mozambique in their Group A opener set for the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Gqeberha tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. South Africa are five-time COSAFA champions but were beaten in the semi-finals by eventual champions Zambia in last year's edition. They then went on to defeat Malawi in penalties in the third place playoff. Then in rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has named a strong squad of 39 players and an additional 14 players on a standby list for the incoming series, which kicks off with a challenging 2-test against Ireland, followed by a one-off test against Portugal. The two uncapped players named in the squad were Bulls hooker Johan Grobler and front rower Jan Hendrik Wessels, while Cheslin Colby and Lucanio Am, who joined the Springbok squad at different stages during the training camp in Pretoria to do their rehabilitation under the provision of the Bok medical team, are back from injury. Andre Pollard and Jasper Visser, who trained with the team but were ineligible to selection for or due to the Wales test following outside of the international window, have also been named in the squad, although Visser will only be available for selection once he completes his suspension from a dangerous tackle. Erasmus has also called up Sia Kolisi and Archie Snyman, who both joined the squad in London following their club commitments. The 39-man squad features 22 forwards and 17 backline players, with Erasmus set to name the captain for the competition closer to the Ireland test. In cricket, David Warner's 15-year international career came to an anticlimactic end as Australia were dumped out of the T20 World Cup. Australia and Warner could only watch on powerless as Afghanistan instead reached the semi-finals by beating Bangladesh by a nail-biting 8 runs. Australia's fate had hung in the balance after India defeated them by 24 runs. Now, the 37-year-old opening batsman Warner had always said that the World Cup in the United States and Caribbean would be his farewell to international cricket. In tennis, Emma Raducanu brushed aside Sloane Stephens 6-4 and 6-love to advance to the second round of the Eastbourne International in a battle of former US Open champions. Raducanu recovered from being broken twice twice in the first set before demolishing her opponent in the second set to set up a second round match against number 5 Jessica Peguela. Then finally in motorsport, Mercedes have been told no criminal offences were committed after the British-based F1 team called on police to investigate an anonymous email which claimed that Lewis Hamilton's car was being sabotaged. Speaking at the recent Spanish Grand Prix, team principal Toto Wolff vowed to go full force in response to the correspondence said to be sent by a disgruntled Mercedes staff member titled "A Potential Death Warrant for Lewis." With that said, it's a wrap from my side.
Just a quick one. I mean, your thoughts about that Springbok tour. Siya Kolisi is back in the team, right?
Yes.
Okay, you didn't play last week because of these different things. But I mean, any thoughts on the South African team?
I think it's fair. It's always good to see new faces coming into the side. It's always good to have experience. I mean, seeing the likes of Lukhanyo Am, Cheslin Colby in there, and Hadre Pollard, who was one of my favorites actually at the World Cup.
Of course.
But I'm confident that they'll do well.
But I think also Rassie Erasmus made the point that, and I think we need to understand is that ultimately you're building a team to win the next World Cup.
Yep.
So if there's some hiccups along the way, there's going to have to be some players who are going to be moved out, because the team of the previous World Cup and the previous World Cup, they were virtually identical in many ways. So they're going to get old now.
And that's the thing about a good coach, right? Being able to balance out the best team, however, being able to bring in the new ones or the young ones and usher out the old.
And win the World Cup at the same
time.
Can you imagine winning the World Cup 3 times in a row? Rugby World Cup, and then the Cricket World Cup to follow. You never know. Then we'll talk about Bafana. Okay, you better say your goodbyes.
I did say my goodbyes.
I didn't hear it. Okay. Say it again for the second time.
Right.
I got it. Thank you. We'll talk again tomorrow.
SAFM Youth Month Takeover. SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what the 2 compelling issues facing our 30 years of democracy are, and we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey there! Need to know your TV license balance but don't want to wait? No sweat. Just send a quick SMS with your ID or TV license number to 44210. Remember, standard SMS rates apply. And presto, your balance pops right up anytime, anywhere. It's as easy as pie. So why procrastinate? Give it a try and get your info in a flash. T's and C's apply.
Do you remember the cool times of Sports Buzz?
Coming up on Sports
Buzz used to be the go-to young people sports show in Mzansi Africa. The multi-sport award-winning youth magazine show. A great platform that profiled young athletes and teams. The glory days of Sports Buzz are back in a newly revamped youth sports show with a wow vibe. Goats like us. Yeah, goats. Greatest of all time. Experience youth excellence in sports. Profiling of active athletes and teams. Latest news in the world of youth sport, the active voice of school sports, and promoting a healthy lifestyle among the youth. Do not miss out on Goats Like Us. Your front row seat awaits you every Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #Goats, greatest of all time. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets as always with Jimmy Moyaha for the MoneyWeb market update. Jimmy, I trust you're well.
I am well. How are you, Ashraf?
I'm very good. I've got a story to tell you, by the way. So this morning there was a caller on Stephen's show, right? And of course they're talking about the only issue that everybody's talking about, which is, cabinet and whatever's going on. And then he quoted someone about the complexities of a GNU and a cabinet and reflected the example of putting together a World Cup winning rugby team. And the person he quoted is a person by the name of Jimmy Moyaha. I thought I should just tell you that. Yeah.
What an interesting quote. Well, sometimes you have these conversations and you don't realize just how much listeners are taking in the information that we share with them. But that is why we continue to share only the best of the information that we can with them.
Absolutely.
And to that end,
Yeah.
this is why today's show is quite packed. We've actually got an interesting listing that took place today. There was a special purpose acquisition vehicle, or SPAC is kind of the financial term for it, that listed on the JSE today. It is a medical cannabis company by the name of psilocybin. We've been tracking this for quite some time. It is effectively the first of its kind to list on the JSE, and I've got a conversation with the CEO and president of the company, Gabriel Teron, around the day and what goes into it and what went into the listing and how the emotions were around that. It's always positive to see new companies listed on our JSE because it means new opportunities for investors to invest in, but it also shows the strength of what we're able to build as entrepreneurs and businesses in South Africa that are able to build things that can be traded on international and local exchanges. So we've got a conversation around that listing today with the CEO himself. Then we've got a conversation around the PwC mining report. They put out a mining report. Obviously, miners have been under pressure for quite some time. We're going to try and unpack what's happening in that sector, where we go to from here, what we make of the mining space. Is it still worth investing, and at what time and at what price? Then we've got a conversation around financing. Business financing is always an issue, and we've got a conversation with the guys at Lula. They've got some innovative solutions for SMEs looking for financing, looking for working capital, looking to improve their cash flow, and we're just going to chat to them around what they can offer. And then, because it is Tuesday, we usually have either Property Tuesday or Agri Tuesday, and this week is Property Tuesday. We're taking a look at Future Growth's latest acquisition. They bought the Buitekong Mall in Rustenburg, and we're going to speak to them around that. It takes their portfolio up to about 8 billion rand. We're going to dig into what's in that portfolio, why they're going after these kinds of assets. They've got a very clear sort of mandate around what their community property fund wants to invest in, and we're going to speak to them and try and understand where they go to from here and what other areas they might be looking at from an investment point of view. That's our property segment. But before we get to that, the markets have not been receiving the delayed news of cabinet really well. Again, another bearish day, everything in the red. And Henku Kriya joins me now to give us a quick summary of what's been happening in the markets. Good evening, Henku. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. The rand losing another %. We're back above 18.20. This is starting to look like the old days.
Absolutely, Jimmy. Good evening to you, Jimmy, and to Ashraf and to me, and good evening to all of our listeners. Yes, another very red day locally, but it was also the case in Europe. The only bit of green we see is the US markets, where the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq trading about 0.5% stronger at this stage. But I must say the Dow Jones at this stage losing 0.7%. And then, as I said, in Europe, they lost quite a bit today, with the DAX finishing 1% weaker, the CAC 40 0.8% down, and the FTSE 100 finishing 0.4% weaker at the end of the day. And then a similar picture here by us, where the JSE finished 0.9% lower, and it finished and closed at 79,578 points. The industrial index finished 1.2% weaker, and the resources and financial index, those two indices, finished 0.5% down at the end of the day. Naspers had a bit of a torrid day, and it lost 3.5% today, followed by Prosus, which finished 2.2% weaker. AB InBev lost 1.7%, and Glencore finished the day 1.3% down. But Richmond gave us a bit of green today, and it gained 1.8%. And other companies also finishing about 2% stronger were RCL, PHP, Lightprop, as well as Harmony. There were also Shoprite, Anglo Gold, and AECI, which finished the day 1.5% stronger. Back to the bad news, Sibanye-Stillwater lost 5.5% today. PEP and Alphaman each finished 4% weaker, and Implats, Redefine, and Pick n Pay, unfortunately Pick n Pay again, losing 3.5% today. On the commodities market, the price of gold is $2,325 an ounce. Silver is trading at $29.20. Platinum is sitting at $989, and palladium now trading at $930. The oil price is $85.90 a barrel, more or less $86. And then if we have a look at the exchange rate, at the moment, 18 Rand and 18 cents to the US dollar, 23 rand and 5 cents to the pound, 19 rand 45 to the euro, and 12 rand and 5 cents to the Australian dollar. And the Bitcoin is trading at $61,150, and that is still 1,140,000 rand. And Jimmy, that's how the markets performed today, even though it was a very, very red day overall.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. Certainly a red day on the markets, and we're going to look into what some of those driving factors might be, if beyond just the government of national unity. And we'll look into these a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
Right, you have a great show, Jimmy. As always, 6 to 7 with the MoneyWeb market update. We have our own updates to be concerned about. We got your calls. We'll also chat to Dr. Shahida Umar regarding so many young children, 7 to 15, that age group, who are skipping school. What does all that mean? That comes up.
Are you ready to take your brand to a whole new level? Have you ever thought about how big companies use strong PR to get more people to know about their brands? The Allure Group presents the inaugural Building a Brand Through PR Masterclass. Join us on Wednesday, July 3rd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the DP World Wonders Stadium in Johannesburg. Learn from 12 industry experts as they share their case studies and personal testimonies that will transform your approach to brand building. Visit www.prmasterclass.co.za to get your tickets. Only 650 rands for an in-person experience, or join us virtually for just 350 rands. Don't miss this chance to master the art of PR and take your brand to the next level. Building a brand through PR Masterclass, powered by Independent Media.
Not every grand idea turns out the way it was envisioned. You know what I'm talking about. That attempted upside-down kiss inspired by that superhero in the pouring rain that resulted in pneumonia and broken bones. That Tokyo drifting that ended up in an embarrassing explanation to your insurance. That online order going through your partner's phone. Hi, cut. Join Richard Hammond as he takes you on a journey of clips from the main show that highlights some of their boldest stunt attempts, a number of which didn't go as planned. Tune into Top Gear, Ambitious and Rubbish, Fridays at 9 p.m. to channel your inner vroom with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, we'll chat to Dr. Shahida Umar coming up shortly, but to get us there, some calls. Lanius Mashila on the line. Hi, Lanius.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. Good to connect with you. Right, go ahead. What's your point?
No, Ashraf, I think, we as community leaders, and we are really happy and appreciate that Parliament now has got a full complement of its membership by the taking of oaths by the MK members. I think we should appreciate that, and all those that believe in constitutional democracy must appreciate that they have eventually joined everybody. We have a full complement of Parliament, and then they must get down to work and deal with the things that the South Africans expect from our Parliament.
Well, I think you're spot on, and you're absolutely spot on. And I've said this before, that no matter which party you may support or vote for, ultimately getting all 400 seats in Parliament filled, I think is a critical vote for the democratic solution to our country, and long may that remain. So thanks for that call, Lennis. And I always tell myself this, that, when I saw the inauguration of the president, again, doesn't matter who you vote for, when he's the president of your country. I never want to stop getting excited at the time that the MPs get sworn in as MPs, and I never want to stop getting excited when we see the president being inaugurated, because that is a vote for the democratic institution that we live in. Thanks for that call. Let's get another. Salo in Mokopane. Hi, Salo.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Right, go ahead.
Look, I'm just concerned about how we try to discredit other people while we have a sitting president who I think he is not so clean like other people, who is a leader of the country, who has been found touching some cash somewhere, Ashraf. So, are we not being too excited or being too judgmental to other people than the president who's heading the country, Ashraf? I mean, our president, I think he is being portrayed as a clean person with integrity and so forth and so forth. And we know that is not true.
But I don't know if he's being portrayed as that, because, I mean, I know that the issue once again of Pala Pala will come up again. It's been already promised by certain people. So that will come up again.
Yes, Ashraf, but are we talking more about the integrity of the president then? Than the people who are like the John Cropper one. I mean, that's the thing with this media of ours sometimes, Ashraf, in my view, that there are certain people who are left to be criticized, and there are people who are, they shoot in brackets by what media and so forth. We need to deal with the person who is leading the country, and after that, we are going to come down to those the MPs and so forth. Now we are going to criticize our John Cropper, our Busisiwe Mkhwebane, and so forth and so forth. But we have a leader, a CEO of the country, who has this dark cloud on his head, but the market is happy, and so forth and so forth. I think this is absolutely crazy and nonsense in my view.
Got that. Salo got that. I think in terms of how the markets perceive it, we can't determine what the markets perceive. In terms of the media, I think the media reflects the conversation that take place in the country anyway. It reflects the news. The media doesn't drive the actual news. It's the people that drive the agenda. So the only reason we're talking about John Sloper and Ramaphosa is because of what they've done, not because of what they've done or what we allege they do. It's not because the media has decided they've done right or wrong. There's certain things they've done. The media then amplifies it. Yes, the media absolutely does that. And sometimes you can talk about the media amplifying certain things more than others. I mean, I get you on that. But overall, the media can't change an actual destiny of a judgment or a ruling. That is really up to the courts, and we do have an independent judiciary in our country. Thank goodness for that. So all those people, their turn may well come. Right. Thanks for that call. I'll get a chance. If we get a chance, we'll play some further voice notes as well. But always love your connection, and feel free to follow me on the various social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and TikTok too as well. But do the same with SFM Radio, and you can engage with us. Love to chat with you all the time. #The National Pulse. Right. Here's a cause for concern as well. Education experts are expressing concern over the number of pupils skipping school, and they're from the ages of 7 to 15. So they're really lighties. We're talking about lighties, okay? According to the General Household Survey of 2022, which was published last year, one of the reasons that pupils are not in school is because of parenting challenges and other social factors. Now, is that something new or something we know? But the big question really is, how do we arrest, and arrest is a significant word I'm using, that position? My guest is Dr. Shahida Omar, who is the Clinical Director of the Teddy Bear Foundation. Shahida, Dr. Omar, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you.
Yeah, good chatting to you. So here's the thought. I mean, first of all, are you surprised at those findings? 7 to 15, so many skipping school, which is not the same as dropping out of school, just skipping school, which is what? Bunking school, not attending, right?
Well, basically, I think the reality of the situation is that these children are not attending school because of legitimate and valid reasons. It's not because they delinquents or their children coming into conflict with the law. The reality we need to actually come face to face with is the parents living in impoverished circumstances, unemployed, unable to pay school fees. Now we know that quintile 1, 2, 3 schools are exempted from school fees. We have the best policies in the world. The education policy, the best, but the implementation, where because we've done surveys in the southern suburbs in Johannesburg, and we found that 200 of the children that were not attending school, the reasons that were after it was investigated, we found that they were not able to pay for school fees, they were not able to pay for transport costs to and fro from school, they were not able to pay for school uniforms, and of course, these are challenges that we are faced with, but also the lack of documentation. Now, we know our Constitution, Section 28, Article 28, speaks to the right to education for each and every child is compulsory, and denying or depriving that child is definitely a violation. So, as I said, the policies are there, but the implementation, because parents are struggling. They are challenged when they go to school. They're not in a position to actually, get their children enrolled into school for the reasons that are cited. And there are many other reasons, Ashraf, we need to consider here, because we're looking at refugee children, we're looking at migrants, undocumented, and the challenge there is that often when they go in, they don't have the papers and they are turned away, despite the fact when they say they've made applications, they are waiting. But even when we're looking at paternity suits and where mothers coming with children to school, wanting to register them, they have to bring a furnished proof of paternity and bring the father there, get all sorts of signatures, and that it's not practical. So realistically speaking, it's the systems that are failing our children. It's not the parents that are failing the children.
Yeah.
And that is something that we have to address. And like you said, arrest, interrogate, and we've got to address this rather urgently, because we are finding children on the streets as a result of this coming into conflict with the law. Children are being labeled as conduct disorder, oppositional defiant, antisocial personality. But if we look at all the opportunities, if we just look at the basic needs, the lower order needs of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food and shelter they're struggling with, how do you expect them to come to a stage of self-actualization?
Well, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up and clarified that, because, it certainly is not the same as young children who are disinterested or who are just playing truant. I mean, this is a big social problem, but here's the bigger issue. I have a sense if I replayed an interview with you from 10 years ago, you could well be saying the same thing.
Indeed. So if we just look at the statistics, what has changed from 1.2% to 1.4% and just under 150,000 children, that in itself is of grave concern. It's alarming, when we speak about children's rights and no school, no food, because that's what it translates into. The child's opportunity for growth and development, intellectual development, is all stunted. And then it has a knock-on effect onto the fiscus and the whole economy of the country. We are finding more and more children unskilled, untrained, and lack of opportunities where they cannot find decent jobs because they haven't gone to school. Due to, whose fault is it at the end of the day?
Well, how do we turn that around? I mean, whose fault? I mean, we're talking about suddenly, massive changes in government, which many ways mirrors the dissatisfaction that people have in terms of the decisions that are being made on behalf of the majority. So how do we turn all this around?
Excellent question. How do we turn this around? We need to look at all the stakeholders, all the government departments. We've got, as I said, we've got the best policy. So we've got Department of Social Development, who are the custodians of children. We've got the Department of Education, who are supposed to provide education to children. We've got home affairs. We've got health. We've got to have collaboration, a collective effort. It's got to be coordinated and integrated if we want to see any change, because there's pockets of excellence. And we cannot blame any single department or government department. But the fact is that they are not communicating with each other. They're not connecting with each other and not promoting the best interests of the child at the end of the day.
Okay, here's the last thing as we wrap up. What role can civil society, and even including, the Teddy Bear Clinic or Teddy Bear Foundation, but other civil society organizations put in play in putting the type of pressure on key decision makers in government to ensure we don't have this conversation 5 years from now?
Well, I think we all need to stand up and speak out and break the silence so we don't perpetuate the cycle of violence, the cycle of abuse, where children are denied their basic right to education. And we need to also put our, heads together, thinking caps together to see how can we support the institutions in ensuring that children are given the opportunity, whether it's, volunteering transport, volunteering in shape, kind, and form, even in monetary remuneration benefits where we adopt children, where, adopt a child for school. I think civil society has a huge role to play, but we mustn't let government off the hook as well.
Well, you've certainly given us lots to think about. The question is how do we move from thinking to actual action? Dr. Shahida Omar, appreciate your time today. Clinical Director of the Teddy Bear Foundation. Well, there you are. What do you make of that conversation? And, that conversation is as serious and as important as the conversation that we have about the government of national unity. Remember, I mentioned it before. We also need to move from the government of national unity to a government of service delivery. And this is just another classic example of that. But listen, let me thank you for being a part of the show. There's been some fascinating conversations, as we always have, and all of it put up as a podcast as well. And I love your calls and your engagement with me. Often we agree, often we disagree, but the engagement is so critically important. So to the team today with Phineas, Tumi, Tebogo, Vusani, Temba, as well as Greg, who takes over the news desk right now. A goodbye until we meet again tomorrow, 3 to 6. Right now, 6 o'clock. Here's the news with Greg.